Chapter 162. Chu Tianjiao stood up. Although he had achieved a great victory, there was no trace of complacency on his face. On the contrary, he bowed to the elders of the Emperor Star Academy. "Elders, do you have anything to say?" Old Gu placed Shuelingfeng down and glanced at Chu Tianjiao. This person was neither arrogant nor rash, and his talent was extraordinary. Sadly, his ambitions were too great. He wanted to pacify the entire Chu country, allowing the royal clan to cover the skies with one hand. Without the Emperor Star Academy, without the Qin clan, only the royal clan reigned supreme. Victory and defeat are nothing out of the ordinary. The students of the Emperor Star Academy must remember today's battle and cultivate even harder in the future. Regardless of what Old Gu was thinking in his heart, he couldn't let Chu Tianjiao laugh at him on the surface. After all, although Chu Tianjiao's words were beautiful, who didn't know of his wild ambitions? Chu Tianjiao admires Senior's breadth of mind. However, I still have to bring up the matter of Qin Yao. I hope that Senior can be magnanimous enough to allow Miss Qin Yao to accompany the Crown Prince of Snowcloud back to Chu Tianjiao. Chu Tianjiao was still as polite as before, neither servile nor overbearing. "You can just ask for Qin Yao's opinion on this matter. How can I make a decision for her?" Old Gu unhappily replied. "As long as the elders of the Emperor Star Academy don't obstruct us juniors, it's fine." Chu Tianjiao continued. "So you want to use force?" A cold light flickered in Old Gu's eyes. "I don't dare to. This is originally a matter between juniors. It's best for us to handle it ourselves. Of course, if the Emperor Star Academy uses numbers to bully us, or if the elders obstruct us, I have nothing to say." Chu Tianjiao had pinned the blame on the Emperor Star Academy, causing the spectators to understand his intentions. Earlier, after he defeated the Emperor Star Academy, he intentionally provoked them. Didn't this mean that the Emperor Star Academy couldn't obstruct them from bringing Qin Yao away? If not, it would mean that the Emperor Star Academy was useless. The logic of the third prince really makes one not know whether to laugh or cry. Old Gu mocked. "According to what you mean, if you win, you can just snatch Qin Yao away? If the Emperor Star Academy doesn't interfere, it would be considered as bullying? What kind of place do you think the Emperor Star Academy is?" Since Senior understands it this way, I, Chu Tianjiao, have nothing more to say. If the Emperor Star Academy insists on this, I can only leave. However, the reputation of the Emperor Star Academy wouldn't be too good to hear. Didn't the Royal Academy just win a few battles that were arranged beforehand? Why do I feel as though the Royal Academy is standing above the Emperor Star Academy? Qin Wendian couldn't bear to see this. Although Chu Tianjiao appeared humble, he was actually extremely domineering. The Emperor Star Academy's preparations weren't sufficient, but you guys managed to find a few unknown experts from God knows where, and you call this victory? Qin of Academy. The Academy was of the Qin. Academy of Academy, Emperor of the Academy of Tianov Academy, of the Academy, Tianqin Academy of the Academy, of Wu of. 5 days later, the Emperor Star Academy can bring 5 people to pay a visit to the Royal Academy. The arterial circulation realm doesn't have a specific cultivation level, and the Emperor Star Academy can choose their disciples now. My Emperor Star Academy can guarantee that the Royal Academy will definitely recognize these 5 people. On the contrary, the majority of the martial academies in the royal capital are focused on guiding their disciples in their cultivation. Most of them are at the arterial circulation realm, and because of this, the competition at the arterial circulation realm is more suitable. 5 days from now, the Emperor Star Academy can bring 5 people to pay a visit to the Royal Academy. The arterial circulation realm doesn't have a specific cultivation level, and the Royal Academy can choose their disciples now. My Emperor Star Academy can guarantee that these 5 people are definitely not from outside, and the Royal Academy will definitely recognize them. Qin Wendian was undoubtedly hinting that his Emperor Star Academy wouldn't be the same as them, inviting unknown experts to battle. Old Gu glanced at Qin Wendian as he laughed. Today's visit to the Royal Academy was to slap the Emperor Star Academy's face. Qin Wendian's suggestion wasn't bad, but the main point was to ensure victory. After all, after the merger of the godly General Martial Palace and the Royal Academy, there would be many outstanding disciples. However, their advantage was none other than Qin Wenyin. This suggestion isn't bad. Old Gu continued, most of the Yuanfu realm disciples have already graduated, so there's no need to compete. But as for the arterial circulation realm disciples, there should still be students from both academies. Regarding Qin Yao, the Emperor Star Academy has yet to express their stance. Qin Yao is already a student of my Emperor Star Academy. If the third prince dares to say that if our Emperor Star Academy wins 5 days later, we can snatch any beautiful female disciple from the Royal Academy, and the Royal Academy won't interfere, I have nothing to say. Old Gu coldly laughed. Based on Chu Tianjiao's status, it was impossible for him to make such a ridiculous decision. Chu Tianjiao fell silent. He knew that it was impossible for him to bring Qin Yao away today. Naturally, he already knew that it was impossible, but he still had to put up a front. Not only that, they had indeed embarrassed the Emperor Star Academy, and the result of this battle would soon spread throughout the royal capital, affecting the enrollment of new students. But what Chu Tianjiao didn't expect was that Qin Wenyin actually wanted to return the favor to the Royal Academy. Farewell. Chu Tianjiao bowed once more, as he turned and departed. Those beside him followed suit, departing the Royal Academy. 5 days later, do you accept the challenge? Qin Wenyin stared at the back of Chu Tianjiao as he asked. Any time. Chu Tianjiao's voice drifted over, causing Old Gu's countenance to turn heavy. He turned to Qin Wenyin beside him. Wenyin, with the merger of the two great academies, in addition to the fact that they will seek help from other experts, things are going to be a little troublesome. Today, they are the guests and the rules are set by them. 5 days later, we will be the guests, and the rules will be set by us. Why must we fight separately? Qin Wenyan's eyes flickered with a sharp glint, causing Old Gu's countenance to stiffen. After which, he patted Qin Wenyan on his shoulders. The pressure on Qin Wenyan's shoulders was immense. The crowd from the Emperor Star Academy gradually dispersed. Just as Chu Tianjiao had predicted, the result of the battle quickly spread throughout the royal capital. After the merger of the Royal Academy and the godly General Martial Palace, the limelight was unrivaled, suppressing even the Emperor Star Academy, becoming the #1 academy in the royal capital. This caused many outstanding youths to waver. Initially, many of them had planned to enroll in the Emperor Star Academy for the entrance examination. Could it be that they had changed their minds? However, another piece of news circulated out. The Emperor Star Academy wasn't satisfied with their defeat and would pay a visit to the Royal Academy 5 days later. And the person in the lead was none other than the top ranker of the Jun Lin banquet, Qin Wenyin. With Qin Wenyan's strength, it was naturally hard for him to meet a worthy opponent at the arterial circulation realm. However, what about the others? Would they have a chance of victory? Currently, Qin Wenyin was in closed-door seclusion. After Francis received his letter, he followed Qin Wenyan's instructions and handed the divine inscription painting over to the divine weapon pavilion. With the fastest speed, the divine weapon pavilion paid a hefty price to gather all the items that Qin Wenyan needed and sent them over to Qin Wenyan. These items included demonic cores, Yuan meteor stones that contain the astral energy of the demonic constellations, as well as other resources that contain the essence of demonic beasts. Just the items sent over by the divine weapon pavilion were definitely priceless. However, this was only the first level of the fiend transformation art that Qin Wenyan wanted to cultivate. Not only that, it wasn't sufficient for him to reach the perfection boundary of the first level. In the future, he would need even more resources. As for the second level of the fiend transformation art, not only did he need resources, he also needed to condense a powerful astral soul from a demonic beast. However, that was something that would happen after Qin Wenyan stepped into Yuanfu and condensed his third astral soul. The current him only wanted to cultivate the first level of the fiend transformation art, the demonic body transformation art. Qin Wenyan did his best to cultivate, completely ignoring the happenings in the outside world. In the royal capital of Chu, other than the Sky Transport Network and Heaven's Wonder, there was still the Heavenly Treasures Network. the Sky Transport Network was the largest transportation network in the Chu country, Heaven's Wonder was the largest casino, and the Heavenly Treasures Network was the largest trading center for treasures. This was somewhat similar to the Divine Weapon Pavilion, but there were also some differences. The main business of the Divine Weapon Pavilion was the sale of divine weapons, while the Heavenly Treasures Network focused more on the transactions of rare and precious treasures. Hence, the Heavenly Treasures Network was also the largest auction house in the Chu country. The crystal auction building of the Heavenly Treasures Network was split into 3 levels, and was constructed entirely from crystals. The entire building was shimmering with a resplendent light, exuding a sense of extravagance and nobility. Today, regardless of whether it was the first, second, or third level of the crystal auction building, they were all filled to the brim. This was because the Heavenly Treasures Network had already released the news that an extremely valuable treasure would be auctioned today. This undoubtedly stirred the curiosity of many. There was no need to doubt the value of a treasure that could be auctioned in the crystal auction building. Hence, many nobles came today. Zuayin, Murin, Orkan, Yizhan, and Lu Yin, Autumn Snow and her friends came as well. They all wanted to see what the Heavenly Treasures Network was going to auction. On the first level of the crystal auction building, within a crystal lotus, a beautiful lady clad in translucent robes stood there. Her beauty was breathtaking, causing people to sigh in admiration. The lotus slowly rose up into the air, and the lady had a charming smile on her face. She held a painting in her hands as she spoke to the crowd. The treasure being auctioned today was created by one of the most outstanding geniuses in the history of the Emperor's Star Academy in the Chu country. In fact, I feel that the word, one of, should be removed from its name. As the sound of her voice faded, many in the crowd were stunned. The most outstanding genius in the history of the Emperor's Star Academy? What the tantalizing question. When he was 16 years old, he had yet to step onto the path of cultivation. At that time, his marriage engagement was broken off and he was humiliated. However, he didn't give up. On the contrary, the first astral soul he awakened originated from the 3rd heavenly layer, and his second astral soul originated from the 4th heavenly layer. In a short span of a year, he stepped into the peak of the arterial circulation realm. Not only that, he created a miracle, becoming the champion of the Jun Lin banquet, defeating Luo Qianqiu and Sikong Mingyue. The hearts of the crowd trembled as they guessed who she was talking about. Autumn Snow's countenance turned pale. Wasn't the marriage engagement broken off and humiliated? Wasn't this referring to her? At this moment, she only felt a burning sensation on her face. Not only that, he is also the most outstanding genius in the Chu country. At the age of 17, he was able to inscribe a divine imprint that even heavenly dipper sovereigns were in awe. That was a 3rd-level divine imprint, a human-shaped painting that had never appeared before in the history of the Chu country. The young lady smiled as she spoke. Only now did they realize that Qin Wenyan was truly outstanding. Autumn Snow was even thinking in her heart that if that incident didn't happen back then, that naive young man would still be together with her right now. Back then, for that painting, even the heavenly dipper sovereigns, Senior Qin Wenyan, gave it his all and even promised Mu Ro a favor. Today, this is the 2nd painting created by Grandmaster Qin Wenyan, a unique masterpiece that surpasses the previous one. Maybe it would be highly regarded by heavenly dipper sovereigns. The young lady smiled as she swept her gaze across the crowd. With just a few sentences, the atmosphere was pushed to the peak, causing the blood of many in the crowd to boil. Just the fact that even heavenly dipper sovereigns wanted this painting was sufficient to drive many people crazy, not to mention the value of the painting itself. Seeing the performance of the young lady, a smile appeared on Liu Yan's face. Seems like her decision to send the painting to the Heavenly Treasures Tower for auction was the correct one. Chapter 163. Within the translucent crystal lotus, the water maiden, clad in a translucent crystal cloak, had exceedingly good skin. It was as though she had fused into the painting, causing the hearts of many males to pound with excitement. However, when she unfurled the painting in her hands, the gazes of the crowd instantly shifted away, as they stared at the divine inscription painting. It was still the same human-shaped painting, as though it had a mind of its own. The ancient halberd exuded an aura that caused the spectators to be immersed within, as though they had entered a miraculous state. Yet another revolutionary creation. Seems like Qin Wenyan is truly a heaven-defying genius. The first painting might have been obtained by chance, but this second painting clearly has the same aura as the first painting and was created by the same person. Not only that, the aura contained within this painting is even more intense. A voice drifted out from a crystal booth. The young lady inclined her head as she smiled. President Zhuyin has a good eye. I believe that after missing out on the first painting, you won't miss out on the second one. Vice President Zhuyin of the Star River Association. The crowd was shocked as the atmosphere grew increasingly lively. Finally, the auction officially began, and very quickly, the price of this painting was raised to an extremely terrifying level. On the first level, in a certain seat, a young lady stared at the pale-faced Autumn Snow as she asked, Autumn Snow, did you really break off the engagement with Qin Wenyan back then? Autumn Snow's countenance was extremely unsightly. Based on Qin Wenyan's current status, it was no longer something she could compare to, even if Qin Wenyan had a grudge with the royal clan. But now, the Chu country had already rebelled, and it was still unknown who would emerge victorious. If the rebels won, Qin Wenyan's status would be equivalent to the current Chu Tianjiao's. Because now, everyone knew that the Qin clan was the target of the rebels, and this was also the banner of their rebellion. Lu Yen, who was seated in the second-level booth with Yi Zhan, was also feeling complicated in her heart. Back then, Yi Zhan had told her that Qin Wenyan would never be on the same level as her. But now, his words had come true. How many people in the royal capital knew of Yi Zhan? But who didn't know of Qin Wenyan? Because of Qin Wenyan's matter, Mu Qing and Zhuyin were increasingly at odds. Zhuyin seemed to dislike him. Mu Qing was well aware of this and secretly cursed the old man. Since Mu Qing dared to hate him because of a brat, don't blame him for being cruel and merciless. Of course, Mu Qing would not show it. His face was always full of smiles. Finally, the divine inscription painting was purchased by Zhuyin with a sky-high price. He was the vice president of the Star River Association and was proficient in divine inscriptions as well as weaponsmithing. With his wealth, it wouldn't be a problem for him to purchase this painting. Putting one of Qin Wenyan's paintings up for auction here had caused a great stir. Many great figures had participated in the auction. Thinking of this, Autumn Snow dejectedly walked out of the Heavenly Treasures Pavilion. If she said that she had no regrets, it would be a lie. After all, Qin Wenyan had never let her down. It had always been her and Bai Qingsong who were blinded by greed. More importantly, they weren't doing so well now. If not, they wouldn't have thought so much about it. Another reason was that the disparity between the two of them was simply too great. So great that she couldn't even feel the jealousy she had felt in the past. Even now, I'm afraid he still hates me and the Bai clan to the bone. Autumn Snow laughed self-mockingly. Time and experience were truly wondrous things. In just a short span of a year, a person's state of mind had actually undergone such a huge change. This was something that the Autumn Snow of the past would never have dreamt of. As for Qin Wenyan, he didn't know what was happening here, nor did he know how the auction was conducted. Since the Divine Weapon Pavilion had already handled this matter, he completely let it go. In any case, the Divine Weapon Pavilion wouldn't mistreat him. He only needed to focus on his cultivation. Only with strength would he have status, resources, and authority. For the sake of cultivating the fiend transformation art, Qin Wenyan could be said to be self-mutilating. These few days, he cultivated like a madman, using a method that he had never used before. However, the results he obtained were astonishing. His physique grew stronger and stronger, and his life force grew stronger and stronger. Every breath he took was filled with vitality. In the blink of an eye, 5 days passed. Currently, at the entrance of the royal capital, there were already tens of thousands of youths gathered here. These were all people who came to the royal capital to register for the entrance examination of the martial academies. The youths of the various major cities of Chu rushed to the royal capital, adding even more color to the atmosphere, causing the atmosphere to be filled with vitality. Every year at this time, the royal capital would always be bustling with activity. Regardless of the internal strife in Chu, it wouldn't affect the hot-blooded hearts of the youths. All of them wanted to have a bright future. But if one paid attention, they would discover that this time around, there weren't too many students from the various martial academies. Because today was also the day when the Emperor Star Academy would pay a visit to the Royal Academy. 5 days ago, the visit of the Royal Academy had caused the Emperor Star Academy to lose all face and became a hot topic of discussion in the royal capital. And at that time, Qin Wenyan had stated that he would return the visit 5 days later. Many people were waiting to see how strong the response of the champion of the June Lin banquet, Qin Wenyan. And after the merger, what kind of preparations would the powerful royal school make? It wouldn't be so easy for the Emperor Star Academy to obtain victory. Even if Qin Wenyan won 1 round, what about the other 4? Within the Emperor Star Academy, in the central training ground where the Emperor Star Academy had lost previously, Old Gu, Mustang and the other elders were all present. The participants this time around will be somewhat troublesome. Old Gu rubbed his temples, feeling a slight headache. Qin Wenyan, Luo Huan, and Mountain were all here. These 3 could be considered the elites of the arterial circulation realm in the Emperor Star Academy. The 3 of them were definitely going to participate in the June Lin banquet. The June Lin banquet was a stage for cultivators at the pinnacle of the arterial circulation realm. Qin Wenyan and Luo Huan both had achievements there, and Mountain's performance wasn't bad either. He had also broken through to the 9th level of arterial circulation. However, Old Gu still felt a headache coming on. During the previous June Lin banquet, the Emperor Star Academy's results were glorious. But that was only if Luo Qianqiu and Orkan were included. Now, it was naturally impossible for Luo Qianqiu to appear, and Orkan had also chosen to disappear. The O clan was originally a vassal of Chu Tianjiao, so how could he participate? Hence, for the top 9, only Qin Wenyan and Luo Huan were left. But after the merger, there was still Chu Chen, Ho Tai, Shi Jun of the 10 Prodigies, and Leng Ya of the Godly General Martial Palace. Although they didn't manage to obtain the top 9, their combat prowess wasn't weak at all. I'm afraid that Chu Tianjiao will find an excuse to get Sikong Mingyue to participate as well. If that's the case, their lineup will be extremely strong. Old Gu was somewhat worried. Sikong Mingyue and Chu Chen were ranked 3rd and 4th respectively, while Ho Tai was ranked 6th. If Chu Tianjiao were to play some tricks and find an unknown expert at the arterial circulation realm, things would be even more difficult. Our lineup isn't weak either. Luo Qing walked over from afar, nodding his head to Qin Wenyan. During the previous June Lin banquet, I was tricked so badly by you and 7th Night. But after seeing your strength, I admit that I should have been eliminated. If there's an opportunity, let's spar again. Qin Wenyan laughed. He knew that to a martial arts fanatic like Luo Qing, if he were to be courteous, it would be an insult. But if he were to spar, Luo Qing would be more than happy to accept such a challenge. Sure, for sure. Luo Qing nodded his head as he smiled. Are all the 5 of us here? For now, there are only 4. There's still 1 more left. Who should we send out? Old Gu felt his head aching. What do you think about me? A weak voice drifted over. The gazes of the few of them shifted over, only to see a fat silhouette with a wretched look in his eyes. Qin Wenyan blinked his eyes as he stared at the newcomer. So it turned out that this fatty was none other than Fan Lu. He actually wanted to take the initiative to participate in the battle. I think he can do it. Only to see Mustang's eyes brightening. During these few days, he had been guiding Fan Lu, and he was extremely clear of the capabilities of this fatty. A few days ago, he stepped into the 8th level of arterial circulation. Although his cultivation base is still a little lacking, his bloodline power and unique innate abilities can make up for it. Not only that, he is extremely suited for group battles. Mustang rubbed his chin as he laughed, causing Qin Wenyan to be slightly taken aback. Fatty Fan Lu had actually broken through to the 8th level of arterial circulation? This improvement was simply too terrifying. Seeing the look of shock on Qin Wenyan's face, Fatty Fan Lu winked at Qin Wenyan as he stated, I, Fatty, am a genius. This fellow is indeed a genius. His cultivation speed is extremely fast, and not long ago he managed to obtain a large amount of yuan meteor stones from an unknown source. To think that he actually disregarded everything and absorbed the yuan meteor stones madly, forcibly breaking through to the 8th level of arterial circulation. Mustang laughed. Qin Wenyan nodded his head lightly. Back then, when Fan Lu first entered the Emperor Star Academy, his cultivation base was already higher than his. According to Mustang, this fatty was simply too lazy. Ever since Fatty was captured by Mustang, other than cultivating, he would only spend his time on tempering himself. Even when he slept, he would control the amount of time he spent in his room. Since the decision has been made, let's move out. Old Gu gazed at the skies, only to see a gigantic demonic beast descending from the skies, landing in front of the crowd. Old Gu, as well as Qin Wenyan and the other 4, all mounted their demonic beasts and soared into the skies. Because of the absence of Luo Qianqiu and Orkan, although the lineup of these 5 couldn't be considered extravagant, it was still extremely breathtaking. Qin Wenyan, the champion of the June Lin banquet, Luo Huan, the top 9, Luo Cheng, the unluckier Luo Cheng. Mountain had already broken through to the 9th level of arterial circulation, and Fatty Fan Li's bloodline in addition to his talent allowed him to control the crowd. Now, it all depended on the lineup of the Royal Academy. How terrifying was the speed of an 8th level demonic beast. Not too long later, the griffins hovered in the air above the Royal Academy. Within the Royal Academy, countless people inclined their heads as they stared at the skies. The people from the Emperor Star Academy had arrived. The Royal Academy was the same as the Emperor Star Academy. They both had a central platform that was used for important battles. The griffins landed on this platform, and Chu Tianjiao and the rest had long since been waiting for them. Chu Tianjiao respectfully welcomed Senior's arrival. Chu Tianjiao bowed respectfully to Old Gu. Beside him stood Xiao Lu and the rest. Behind him, there were also 5 silhouettes. They were Sikong Mingyue, Chu Qin, Ho Tai, and Ling Ya. As for the last silhouette, the 6 from the Emperor Star Academy all had strange expressions on their faces when they saw her. She was actually an extremely beautiful young lady clad in white, exuding a sense of nobility and elegance. The little princess of Chu. Old Gu's eyes flashed with sharpness. Chu Tianjiao had truly put in a lot of effort for this battle. He even invited the little princess to participate in this battle. Although this little princess rarely appeared in front of outsiders, Old Gu was very clear that if she were to participate in the June Lin banquet, she would definitely be ranked within the top 9. Chapter 164. The princes and princesses of Chu were all extraordinary individuals. Other than the first prince who couldn't cultivate, the others all had extremely good talent. This little princess of Chu had an extraordinary talent for cultivation. Naturally, many people didn't know of this. After all, she was a princess and rarely went out. In fact, many people didn't even know of her. This lineup is very strong. There was a hint of worry between Old Gu's brows. Sikong Mingyue, Chu Qin, Ho Tai, Ling Ya, and the little princess. On the surface, such a 5-man team was obviously stronger than their 5-man team. Even those from the Royal Academy had expressions of interest on their faces. The Emperor Star Academy had lost Luo Qianqiu and Orkan, while the Royal Academy had merged with the godly General Martial Palace. Not only that, they had the support of Sikong Mingyue and the little princess. They really couldn't imagine how the Emperor Star Academy could regain their lost face. How does Senior plan to fight? Chu Tianjiao stared at Old Gu as he inquired. Since Chu Tianjiao was a guest, the host naturally had to follow the guest's instructions. Back then when the Royal Academy visited the Emperor Star Academy, they didn't stand on ceremony and directly issued a challenge. 10 people battle, 1 battle to decide the winner. Old Gu replied. Momentarily, the gazes of the crowd froze. It seemed like the Emperor Star Academy wanted to use Qin Wentian's strength to make up for the weaknesses of the others. But even if it was a battle of 10, they still felt that the Emperor Star Academy was in danger. Qin Wentian, Luo Huan, and Luo Cheng weren't weak, but Mountain didn't have much of an impact during the June Lin banquet. As for that fatty, Qin Wentian hadn't even seen him during the June Lin banquet. At this time, Qin Wenyan and the other 4 had already walked onto the fighting ring and were looking at the opposite side. Sikong Mingyue and the other 4 also stepped forward, getting into formation, as though they had long been prepared for this. Chu Tianjiao's countenance was incomparably calm. It was as though he had long guessed that the Emperor Star Academy would choose to engage in a group battle. But so what? In a group battle, the Emperor Star Academy would definitely lose. The slap to their faces this time around would be even more resounding compared to the previous time when they visited the Emperor Star Academy. Please enlighten us, Qin Wenyan and the others said calmly, but the fighting intent in their eyes was already burning. Boom! Sikong Mingyue stood in front of the 5 of them as killing intent gushed out from his body. Ho Tai and Leng Ye stood beside Sikong Mingyue, while the little princess and Chu Chen stood behind them. In the direction of the Emperor Star Academy, Qin Wenyan stood at the forefront, while Luo Cheng stood on his left, facing Ho Tai. Mountain stood on the right, facing Leng Ye, while Luo Huan and Fan Le stood at the back. Both sides were in a formation of 3 at the front and 2 at the back. Sikong Mingyue and Qin Wenyan once again faced off against each other. 2 terrifying auras clashed violently against each other, clashing head-on. On the fighting ring, an invisible gust of wind appeared, blowing on Qin Wentian's robe, making it flutter. The young man's face revealed a resolute expression. This was a battle for glory. They could only win. Today, all of the martial houses in the Imperial City had begun to enroll new students. Countless people in the Imperial City were watching this battle intently. They could not afford to lose. 2 terrifying auras erupted forth. These 2 auras originated from the 2 at the back of the Royal Academy, Chu Chen and the little princess. The power of their bloodlines was unleashed. This bloodline power belonged to the Emperor bloodline of the royal clan of Chu. At the same time, their amethyst astral souls were also released. The light from the scepter shone brightly, and at this moment, the 2 at the back were the most dazzling. Beams of light shot out from the scepter, enveloping Sikong Mingyue, Ho Tai and Leng Ye. In an instant, the auras of the 3 continued to soar. Amethyst astral soul, scepter, control, amplification. The eyes of the crowd flickered with madness as they witnessed this scene. Chu Chen and the little princess both had bloodlines and amethyst astral souls. With the amplification of the amethyst astral soul, the strength of Sikong Mingyue and the other 2 instantly soared to another level. I'm afraid the Emperor Star Academy will have to scram back with their tails between their legs. Someone from the Royal Academy mocked. Today was their home ground. The Royal Academy had been suppressed by the Emperor Star Academy for many years. Now that the Royal Academy had merged with the godly General Martial Palace, they could finally vent their frustrations. If they won this battle, the prestige of the Royal Academy would completely surpass that of the Emperor Star Academy. Even Old Gu's countenance turned heavy. Experts with dual bloodlines could unleash the power of the amethyst astral soul to amplify their attacks. The strength of Sikong Mingyue and the other 2 would reach a terrifying level. In the direction of the Emperor Star Academy, the power of bloodlines also erupted forth. Fan Li's Empyrean flame bloodline was ignited, and his entire body seemed to be boiling. Bloodline. Qin Wentian's aura changed as well. His long hair turned the color of ink, and his entire person exuded the aura of a monarch. He was the king. The Emperor Star Academy also has 2 people with bloodlines. The crowd was filled with anticipation. It was extremely rare for such a battle to occur, especially when it was between a group of geniuses at the peak of the arterial circulation realm. Senior sister, Fatty, control Sikong Mingyue first. Luo Cheng and Mountain, the 2 of you deal with Ho Tai. Also, Fatty, pay attention to the sneak attacks from the 2 behind. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. The 4 of them nodded their heads, as though Qin Wentian was their leader. Sikong Mingyue slowly walked out, and in an instant, the 5 from the Royal Academy advanced forward. Although they had the upper hand in terms of numbers, they didn't dare to be careless. Their opponents had Qin Wentian, and they couldn't help but be cautious. Control, I want to see how you can control them. Sikong Mingyue coldly laughed. His attacks were extremely tyrannical, And now that he had the support of two others, even if he clashed against Qin Wenyan, he wouldn't be afraid. Luo Huan and Fatty wanted to control him as well? Fight! Sikong Mingyue roared in rage at Qin Wenyan as he released his astral souls. Not only him, the other 10 on the platform, other than Qin Wenyan, all released their dazzling astral souls. In an instant, the resplendent light radiating from their astral souls dazzled the eyes of the spectators, causing their vision to be greatly impacted. It was too magnificent. Among these people, none of them had an astral soul from the first heavenly layer. Their first astral soul was condensed from an astral soul from the second heavenly layer. Sikong Mingyue advanced towards Qin Wenyan, his battle intent surging. His only opponent was Qin Wenyan. Do it! Qin Wenyan roared. In an instant, he and Mountain shifted positions, and at the same time, numerous long whips lashed out towards Sikong Mingyue, akin to tens of thousands of tentacles. Sikong Mingyue coldly laughed as he directly grabbed towards the long whips. However, in the next instant, a thunderous roar of rage could be heard. Fatty, who hadn't moved at all, shot out a series of arrows in rapid succession. The arrows were akin to golden streaks of light, piercing towards Sikong Mingyue's eyes, extremely ruthless. Sikong Mingyue coldly laughed. He lifted his palms and blasted out the ancient slaughter character imprint, wanting to destroy everything. However, the arrows instantly changed direction, flying towards his side. In a short instant, the spectators only saw golden streaks of light dancing around the platform, extremely resplendent. Although the might of the arrows wasn't strong, if one was pierced through the eyes, head, throat, or other vital points, they would all die. Right now, these arrows seemed to have eyes of their own. The moment one was careless, they would be able to pierce through their vitals and kill. What a beautiful scene! Someone exclaimed. Sikong Mingyue's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold, as he frenziedly blasted out the ancient slaughter character imprint. However, the speed of the arrows was even faster than his attack speed. When Sikong Mingyue was trapped, Luo Cheng and Mountain had already clashed against Ho Tai. Ho Tai's attack power was truly terrifying. However, Luo Cheng's saber was extremely sharp, and each of his attacks was extremely lethal. After Mountain broke through, his defense was extremely strong. It was impossible for Ho Tai to deal with the two of them. This scene caused the gazes of Chu Chen and the little princess to stiffen. It seemed like it was impossible for the two of them to rely on their augmentations to control the battlefield. Their opponents had two Wu Xiu with extremely powerful control abilities. At this moment, Qin Wenyan had already advanced towards Leng Ya. His strategy was to first deal with one of them, before dealing with them one by one. Upon seeing Fan Li's current level of control, he was extremely pleasantly surprised. Qin Wenyan's Garuda movement technique was incomparably ferocious. When he appeared in front of Leng Ya, Qin Wenyan's heart involuntarily shuddered when he saw the demonic countenance of Qin Wenyan. After which, Leng Ya's palms blasted out. This palm strike was none other than the falling mountain palms. Right now, Qin Wenyan's falling mountain palms were getting stronger and stronger, akin to the pressure of a mountain peak. In addition to his terrifying physique, all of Leng Ya's counterattacks were completely crushed. The instant his palms came into contact with Qin Wenyan, he understood that although he had the advantage in terms of cultivation base, in terms of strength, the two of them weren't even on the same level. The strength that erupted forth from Qin Wenyan's body had too many augmentations. Leaving aside the advantage in the usage of innate techniques, the astral energy bestowed by his astral souls already had an absolute advantage. In addition to that, he had the mountainous divine energy, the physique of a demonic beast, and the boiling of his bloodline. Even against Leng Ya, who had a higher cultivation base than him, Qin Wenyan was still able to completely suppress him. A thunderous sound echoed out as Leng Ya groaned in agony. His body was directly flung through the air, slamming onto the ground below the platform. He coughed out a mouthful of blood, and his arms felt as though they had been shattered. His internal organs churned violently, and he no longer had the strength to continue fighting. Qin Wenyan only used a single strike to send him flying. From this, one could see how vast the disparity between the two of them was, and how tyrannical the strength of the top ranker of the Junlin banquet was. Chu Chen and the little princess knew that Sikong Mingyue, despite his tyrannical strength, was actually being suppressed by Qin Wenyin. They knew that they couldn't afford to wait any longer. Exchanging glances, Chu Chen's silhouette flickered as he dashed towards the direction of Luo Huan and Fan Lu. This fatty's cultivation base was only at the 8th level of arterial circulation. What was strong about him was his ability to control and restrict the trajectory of his arrows. Only by dealing with him would Sikong Mingyue be able to focus all his attention on dealing with Qin Wenyin. If not, they would all be wiped out one by Qin Wenyin. I will restrain him. Wenyin, you end the battle quickly. Luo Huan's silhouette flickered as she appeared in front of Chu Chen. Fan Li's ability to control his opponents was extremely strong, and he was able to delay Sikong Mingyue for a period of time. Sikong Mingyue advanced step by step towards Fan Lu, only to see Fan Lu dodging unceasingly. The arrows shot out in a frenzy, as though they would never stop. The golden arrows on the platform continued to dance in the air. Qin Wentian's silhouette appeared in front of the little princess, as a demonic light radiated from his eyes. That demonic aura he exuded caused the little princess's heart to involuntarily tremble. This was the first time she had met such a character. Even someone as noble as her, when facing Qin Wenyin at this moment, actually felt a sense of inferiority and insignificance. At this moment, Qin Wenyin had no idea that he was exuding an innate aura of a monarch. Chapter 165. Qin Wenyin naturally knew that he had to end this battle as quickly as possible. Executing the Garuda movement technique, his silhouette transformed into a beam of light as he dashed forward. The forgotten imprint of the 1,000 Hands imprint blasted out, engulfing everything in its path. The little princess lifted her palms to defend, but the might of her innate technique was extremely strong. However, it was still insufficient to contend against Qin Wentian's strength. Boom! A surging wave of air blew against the long hair of the little princess. Her beautiful hair fluttered in the wind as a look of arrogance flashed in her eyes. She refused to retreat and was even more tenacious compared to Leng Ya. However, the person she was facing was none other than Qin Wenyin. A piercing sound rang out, only to see Qin Wenyin spitting out a sharp beam of sword light. At such a close distance, the countenance of the little princess instantly changed. She tilted her head backwards, evading the sword light. Qin Wentian's palms flickered, forcing her backwards. After which, he closed in on her, and when the little princess inclined her head, Qin Wentian's palm was already clutching onto her throat. The countenance of the little princess paled. Her quick-witted eyes stared at Qin Wenyin with an expression of grievance, as though blaming him for ruining a flower. This fellow was truly too ruthless. Get down. Qin Wentian's palm slammed into the chest of the little princess, blasting her off the platform. He couldn't afford to lose in this battle. Naturally, he wouldn't show mercy just because his opponent was a woman. This bastard. The little princess coughed a few times after being blasted off the platform. She clutched her chest with both hands as she stared at Qin Wenyin, gritting her teeth. However, Qin Wenyin didn't have the time to waste. At this moment, Sikong Mingyue had already arrived beside Fan Lu, as the ancient slaughter imprint blasted towards him. Fatty, give up. Qin Wenyin roared. After which, Fan Lu grinned as he directly jumped off the platform. He had already bought enough time for Qin Wenyin and the other two. Qin Wenyin had already dealt with Leng Ya and the little princess. This was already sufficient. Bastard. Upon seeing this scene, Sikong Mingyue's killing intent exploded forth as he howled in rage at Fan Lu, who had already descended from the platform. 9 ancient slaughter word imprints blasted out simultaneously, aiming for Fan Lu. Fan Li's countenance turned extremely unsightly when he felt the surging killing intent. He hadn't expected Sikong Mingyue to make a move at this moment. Go! Numerous astral arrows shot out from Fan Li's fingers. At the same time, his body actually floated upwards, evading the incoming palm imprints. However, the terrifying aftershocks of the palm imprints still blasted into his body, causing him to fall to the ground as his internal organs churned. Sikong Mingyue didn't bother with Fan Lu any longer because he could feel a terrifying killing intent emanating from behind him. He only saw Qin Wendian glaring at him, exuding a domineering aura that caused Sikong Mingyue's heart to skip a beat. Especially now that he didn't have the amplification from Chu Chen and the little princess's amethyst astral soul, his strength was definitely not a match for Qin Wendian. It was all that damnable fatty's fault. It was precisely because of him that their formation was in chaos, allowing Qin Wendian to instantly finish off two of them. At the instant Qin Wendian stepped out, Sikong Mingyue actually felt a sense of fear in his heart. The current Qin Wendian was even more demonic compared to before. That aura he exuded was even more terrifying than before. He, Sikong Mingyue, originally had an air of arrogance about him. But now, he was being suppressed to the point where he couldn't even see a shadow. Rumble! A terrifying palm imprint blasted out towards Sikong Mingyue as the falling mountain palms were pushed to the limits by Qin Wendian. Sikong Mingyue howled in rage as the ancient slaughter word imprint blasted out with a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas. However, under the might of the palm imprint, they were all shattered into pieces. Following which, Qin Wendian's palm imprint blasted towards Sikong Mingyue, only to see Sikong Mingyue inscribing the ancient slaughter word imprint in the air as the palm imprint blasted out. Qin Wendian's palm imprint trembled unceasingly in the air, as though that terrifying palm imprint contained a stacked might that could engulf everything as it descended. Boom! Sikong Mingyue only felt as though his arm was about to shatter. After which, a powerful palm grabbed hold of his arm as he stared at the devilishly handsome countenance of Qin Wendian. You are truly courting death. Qin Wendian's ice-cold voice was akin to the voice of the Grim Reaper, causing Sikong Mingyue to feel a chill run down his spine. Qin Wendian's left hand blasted out in a frenzy. Sikong Mingyue lifted his arm to block, yet a cracking sound rang out as his arm was directly shattered. At the same time, Qin Wendian's palm imprint blasted out, slamming into his chest. However, Sikong Mingyue wasn't flung backwards because his right arm was still firmly held by Qin Wendian. I concede. Sikong Mingyue coughed out large mouthfuls of blood as his countenance paled. At this moment he was truly terrified. As the sound of his voice rang out, those from the Royal Academy were all dumbfounded. In a battle of 10, Qin Wendian's performance was actually so domineering. Sikong Mingyue, one of the duo prides of Snowcloud, how arrogant was he? Yet, at this moment, in order to preserve his life, he actually shouted out the word, concede. Qin Wendian's palms trembled as he consecutively blasted out 3 palm imprints onto Sikong Mingyue's body. The spectators only saw Sikong Mingyue's countenance turning ashen as Qin Wendian released him. It was unknown how many of Sikong Mingyue's meridians were destroyed as he was blasted off the platform. At the instant he was blasted off the platform, the result of the battle was already clear. The current Qin Wendian was much stronger compared to the Qin Wendian during the June Lin banquet. Sikong Mingyue couldn't even withstand a single strike. Even if Ho Tai and Chu Chen were to fight against Qin Wendian alone, they still wouldn't be able to do so. Ho Tai and Chu Chen didn't continue fighting. They pulled a distance away from Luo Huan and the other two, turning their heads back to stare at Qin Wendian as a sense of helplessness welled up in their hearts. They had indeed predicted that the Emperor Star Academy would propose a battle of 10 and had already prepared a method to deal with it. But with Fan Li's suppression as well as Qin Wendian's tyrannical strength, their plans were all broken within a short period of time. Scram! Qin Wendian took a step forward, his gaze sweeping towards Chu Chen. That wild silhouette, that devilishly handsome countenance, caused Chu Chen to feel a sense of helplessness, not even daring to resist. Chu Chen's countenance stiffened as he coldly snorted and walked off the platform. Qin Wendian shifted his gaze onto Ho Tai, only to see Ho Tai smiling bitterly as he shook his head. If he didn't fight, he would automatically concede. If he continued, he would only be seeking his own humiliation. The students of the Royal Academy all inclined their heads and stared at the 4 silhouettes on the platform. Fatty Fan Lu also leapt up and walked to the side of Qin Wendian, his gaze filled with provocation as he swept his gaze over the crowd. Qin Wendian's gaze was sharp as he stood on the platform. He didn't say a single word, and only stared at Old Gu. Old Gu had a smile on his face as he led his griffin up the platform. Qin Wenin and the rest mounted their griffins as they soared up into the air, disappearing from sight very quickly. There were no complacent words, nor were there any arrogant words of contempt. After they won, they directly left, leaving behind the students of the Royal Academy. If Qin Wenin and the rest were to provoke and humiliate them, they would definitely be filled with rage and hatred. But now, they felt as though they were suffocating, unable to breathe. This kind of feeling was extremely uncomfortable. In the air, the griffin continued to soar through the air. Mountain grinned, seeing Chu Tianjiao in such a state. How satisfying. Your defense isn't bad. Luo Qing smiled at Mountain. This fellow had 2 astral souls, and both of them were proficient in defense. If it wasn't for Mountain, he wouldn't have been able to withstand Ho Tai's violent attacks. Your saber is also very strong. Mountain laughed. However, the most powerful one is still junior brother Qin. At this moment, Qin Wenin had already retracted his earlier aura. At this moment, he was once again calm and composed, like a radiant youth. Nobody would have thought that he would be so arrogant earlier, as though he was the ruler of the world. Senior Mountain, you don't have to praise me too much. Qin Wenin shrugged his shoulders. What's wrong with a few words of praise? I still remember the time when Luo Huan and I went to the Sky Harmony City to fetch you. At that time, you were being hunted down by the Yi clan, and you were filled with determination. In addition to the fact that Teacher Mustang regarded you highly, I guess that you would have great achievements in the future. But who would have thought that you would surpass me and Luo Huan so quickly? Mountain had a silly look on his face as he patted Qin Wenin on his shoulders. He truly admired this junior of his. A look of reminiscence flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. Yeah, time passed so quickly. In the span of a year, he felt that his state of mind had changed so much. Junior brother, in the future when you have great achievements, remember to come back to the Emperor Star Academy to visit me. Don't forget that I'm here. Mountain joked. Senior brother, you intend to stay in the academy? Qin Wentian understood the hidden meaning behind Mountain's words. Naturally, he wasn't the kind of person who would disregard old friends after achieving great achievements. I know my situation very well. I'm afraid that I won't be able to achieve much in this lifetime. Reaching the pinnacle of Yuanfu would already be my limit. After I step into Yuanfu, I will become an honorary elder of the academy. In the future, I will stay in the academy and guide the younger generations. I hope that I will be able to meet someone as talented as you. Mountain was still as silly as ever. Qin Wentian didn't want to change Mountain's mind. Looking at his honest senior brother, he smiled. If I really have great achievements, I will definitely come back to visit senior brother. Okay, remember your promise. I'm a thick-skinned person, I won't forget it. Mountain laughed. Why are you so sour? It's like we're going to part ways soon. Luo Huan glared at Mountain, causing him to scratch his head awkwardly as he replied, Didn't I see that you, junior brother, and you Fei are about to step into Yuanfu? Sooner or later, all of you will have to leave this place. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light. Although this big fellow looked clumsy, she didn't expect him to have such a meticulous side to him. Don't worry, even if elder sister leaves this place, I will definitely come back to visit you in the future. Luo Huan laughed. Mountain laughed again. The griffin swooped down from the skies. Below it, there were already many silhouettes gathered. In the vast public square, countless youths inclined their heads as they stared at the griffin, their eyes filled with envy and yearning. This was the registration ground for the 9 great academies. Qin Wenin stared at the pure and innocent eyes of the crowd. Wasn't this the same state of mind he had when he first stepped into the royal capital? Are those the seniors and students of the Emperor Star Academy? Indeed, their demeanors are extraordinary. Someone commented in a low voice. Hee, you guys probably don't know, but the youth standing in the middle is none other than the champion of the June Lin banquet, Qin Wenin. Qin Wenin? Is that Qin Wenin? The champion of the June Lin banquet, and the most dazzling genius of Chu last year? Grandfather. At this moment, a white crane soared through the air, arriving at the side of the griffin. The crowd inclined their heads, and upon seeing the silhouette on the back of the white crane, their eyes all froze. How beautiful! That's the number one beauty of Chu, Mo Qingqing. Last year here. Old Gu laughed. Didn't you tell me to come here? The Royal Academy must have won the competition, right? Mo Qingqing asked. We won, and we won beautifully. Old Gu was in an extremely good mood. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light as she glanced at Qin Wenyin and the others beside Old Gu. Finally, her gaze landed on Qin Wenyin. Don't I have a name? Qin Wenyin shrugged his shoulders. Are you an idiot? Mo Qingqing smiled sweetly. Okay, you guys will be in charge of the recruitment of the Emperor Star Academy this time around. I'll take my leave first. The griffin landed on the ground, as did the white crane. After releasing the passengers, Old Gu immediately slipped away. Luo Huan sensibly sent Mountain and Luo Cheng away, and even cast a glance at Qin Wenyin, causing Qin Wenyin to be speechless. However, when the champion of the June Lin banquet and the number one beauty of Chu stood in the Emperor Star Academy's camp, it immediately became a beautiful scene, attracting the attention of many. Many people involuntarily moved closer to the Emperor Star Academy's camp. Especially not long after, when the news of the Royal Academy's defeat spread out, some of the youths who had originally planned to register for the Royal Academy's entrance examination changed their original plans. Chapter 166. As the news of the battle between the Royal Academy and the Emperor Star Academy circulated around, the crowd quickly realized that the Royal Academy's victory over the Emperor Star Academy didn't mean anything. The Emperor Star Academy was still the number one academy in the royal capital, its position unshakable. Qin Wenyin and Mo Qingqing stood at the registration area of the Emperor Star Academy. Gazing at the faces of the crowd filled with vitality, the smiles on their faces were exceptionally radiant. Do you still remember the scene when you came to register for the examination last year? Mo Qingqing turned her head as she asked Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin nodded his head. He recalled that when he first arrived last year, Mo Qingqing and Nolan had passed by on a horse carriage. At that time, Mo Qingqing had pulled open the curtains and smiled at him. Now that he thought about it, could it be that she was really smiling at him? At that time, you were still very young and inexperienced. Mo Qingqing blinked her eyes. She was clad in a pure white gown, resembling a fairy. Her slender and tall figure, coupled with her long hair, exuded the charm of a goddess. Many gazes were filled with envy when they saw the mischievous expression on her face when she looked at Qin Wenyin. Maybe only the champion of the June Lin banquet, Qin Wenyin, would be able to enjoy such treatment. Am I very old now? Qin Wenyan's lips twitched. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wenyin, as though she wanted to size him up. The current Qin Wenyan's eyes were as clear as ever, but compared to the past, his demeanor had completely changed. He no longer had that feeling of immaturity. A year's worth of tempering had caused him to mature a lot. Not only that, in the past, Qin Wenyan's emotions could be seen in his eyes. But now it was impossible to see through him. Being stared at by a great beauty like this, Qin Wenyin felt somewhat unnatural. His radiant countenance had traces of shyness in it. Poochie! Mo Qingqing silently cursed in her heart when she saw this scene. The reason why she was so close to Qin Wenyin wasn't because Qin Wenyin was the champion of the June Lin banquet. Other than a coincidence of good fortune, it was also because of Qin Wenyan's simplicity. This was something she couldn't see in the outstanding youths of the royal capital. Ahem, junior brothers and sisters still have to sign up. Qin Wenyin was a little flustered being stared at by a beautiful woman. He secretly gritted his teeth. Why was he always teased by this girl? When Mo Qingqing saw Qin Wenyan's expression, she found it even more hilarious. However, in front of others, she didn't want to show it too much. After all, she was different from others because there were too many gazes on her at all times. She didn't like such an environment, but since her grandpa wanted her to come here, she had no choice but to do so. After all, she was still a young girl, and her daily life was extremely boring. She only had one close friend, Nolan. She didn't really like such an environment, it was only because her grandfather told her to come here. Senior brother Chin. At this moment, a young man was running towards them. Big Mountain wanted to stop him, but the young man was agile and he managed to slip past him. Brat. Big Mountain scolded in a low voice, but he had a smile on his face. Clearly, he did not really blame him. Senior brother? The examination hasn't ended yet, how can you be so sure that you will be able to enter the Emperor Star Academy? Qin Wenyin couldn't help but reveal a gentle smile when he saw that the young man was only about 15 years of age. He was younger than him by a year when he first entered the Emperor Star Academy. The young man had a head full of delicate hair, and was dressed in ordinary clothes. His eyes were big and filled with innocence, yet filled with spirituality. When he looked at Qin Wenyin, his gaze was filled with worship. Of course, I want to be the same as senior brother Qin. I want to be the champion of the Jun Lin banquet a year from now. How can I not be able to enter the Emperor Star Academy? The young man grinned. Keep on bragging. Big Mountain walked over and patted his head, causing the young man to scratch his head and stare at Big Mountain. Senior Mountain, since senior brother Qin can do it, I can definitely do it as well. Okay, I believe in you. Qin Wenyin was extremely happy. There was finally someone who called him senior brother. Junior brother Qin, this fellow's name is Zijun. He's the same as you, hailing from Sky Harmony City. He's a genius, and his first astral soul originated from the third heavenly layer. The academy had already been paying attention to him, but who would have thought that this little rascal would be so arrogant? Big Mountain laughed. Although he was cursing and swearing on the surface, one could tell that he was extremely happy. Such a genius was extremely rare. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. No wonder this fellow would worship him. So it turned out that he was also from Sky Harmony City. And from the way Big Mountain seemed to like him, it seemed that he wanted to teach this little rascal a lesson after entering the academy. Little fellow, work hard. Qin Wentian rubbed Zijun's head. Mo Qingqing, who was standing at the side, couldn't help but giggle when she saw this scene. This fellow had yet to completely shed his immaturity, yet he still pretended to be so mature. How hilarious! Qin Wenyin glared at Mo Qingqing. In front of his junior brother Qin, couldn't she give him some face? Is this beautiful elder sister senior brother Qin's girlfriend? She's so beautiful. Zijun gazed at Mo Qingqing with admiration. He had never seen such a beautiful girl before. Qin Wentian's eyes flickered, as he stared unblinkingly at Mo Qingqing. He didn't say anything. This time around, it was Mo Qingqing's turn to feel awkward. A bashful expression appeared on her face, incomparably beautiful. Upon seeing this scene, Qin Wentian couldn't help but to laugh. The corners of his lips curled up as he looked at Zijun. It should be soon. Mo Qingqing, who was at the side, blushed even more when she heard Qin Wentian's words. She stealthily approached Qin Wenyin and stomped on his foot, causing Qin Wenyin to silently curse at how ruthless this lass was. Zijun's intelligent eyes flickered as he raised his fist towards Qin Wenyin. Senior brother, you can do it. Okay, little fellow, come with me. Mountain pulled Zijun away, but little rascal didn't forget to turn his head back and winked at Qin Wenyin, causing a smile to appear on Qin Wentian's face. He really hoped that little rascal would always have such a simple and honest heart. Hiss. At this moment, Qin Wentian drew in a breath of cold air. Lowering his head, he stared at the beautiful leg that was stepping on his foot. Qin Wenyin bitterly smiled as he turned his head to look at Mo Qingqing, only to see her staring straight ahead with a complacent smile on her face. Indeed, it wasn't so easy to take advantage of beauties. In the direction of the Royal Academy, there were several silhouettes present. Chu Tianjiao Yiwuke, Xiao Lan, Wu Chong, and the other geniuses who had defeated the Emperor Star Academy. Xiao Lan's gaze shifted towards the direction of the Emperor Star Academy, landing on Qin Wenyin as he mused, this person can be considered a rare talent. Although he has some grudges with Luo Qianqiu, it doesn't hinder me from pulling him into my camp. Since this is something that will benefit me, I might as well give him a chance. Who's going over? Tell him that I wish to have a chat with him. Xiao Lan spoke in a low voice. Brother Xiao, are you referring to Qin Wendian? Chu Tianjiao's countenance stiffened. Xiao Lan nodded his head. If he's obedient, that would naturally be for the best. It would also save us a lot of trouble. Brother Xiao loves talent, but I'm afraid that Qin Wenyan won't be tactful. Although Chu Tianjiao was unhappy in his heart, he quickly adjusted his emotions as a gentle smile appeared on his face. He was very clear that Xiao Lan's status in the Nine Mystical Palace was even higher than Luo Qianqiu. Previously, when he contacted the Nine Mystical Palace, he didn't expect that they would send Xiao Lan over to Chu. Wuk, make a trip there. Chu Tianjiao spoke to Yi Wuk. Yi Wuk's eyes narrowed, but he still nodded his head in a tranquil manner. After which, he walked in the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy. Qin Wenyan couldn't help but have a bewildered expression on his face when he saw Yi Wuk walking in front of him. Yi Wuk first cast a glance at Mo Qingqing, as a hint of adoration could be seen in his eyes. He had always been interested in Mo Qingqing, as he felt that only a beauty like Mo Qingqing would be a good match for him. Sadly, Mo Qingqing had always been cold to him. Qin Wendian. Yi Wuk shifted his gaze onto Qin Wenyan. What's the matter? Qin Wenyan stared back at Yi Wuk, as traces of coldness flickered in his eyes. There's someone who wishes to see you, and wants you to make a trip there. Yi Wuk calmly spoke, as he pointed in the direction of the Royal Academy. Qin Wenyan shifted his gaze in the direction of the Royal Academy, only to see several pairs of eyes staring back at him. Among them were Chu Tianjiao, Wu Chong, and that mysterious Xiao Lan. He discovered that Xiao Lan's gaze was the calmest when he looked at him. Not only that, he was standing in the middle of Chu Tianjiao and the rest. Qin Wenyan suddenly recalled that back then when the Royal Academy provoked the Emperor's Star Academy, the first four were all extremely polite. Only when it came to Xiao Lan, he was extremely arrogant. On the platform, Xiao Lan was as tranquil as still water. Qin Wenyan could faintly sense that the person who wanted him to go over was none other than this mysterious Xiao Lan. Who is he? Qin Wenyan turned his head, as an expression of unhappiness flickered in his eyes. These people were truly arrogant. If they wanted to see him, they could just come over, yet they directly ordered Yi Wuk to make a trip there. They had no one in their eyes. Qin Wenyan didn't know that in the eyes of Xiao Lan, this was already an opportunity for him. This was a form of grace to him, Qin Wenyan. After all, Qin Wenyan had already formed a grudge with Luo Tianya and his son. Although Luo Tianya and his son couldn't represent the Nine Mystical Palace, they were still members of the Nine Mystical Palace. Qin Wenyan had already offended the Nine Mystical Palace, and originally, he didn't have any more chances. Xiao Lan was giving Qin Wenyan a chance, hoping that Qin Wenyan would understand. You don't need to know, you only need to go over. Yi Wuk faintly stated. Qin Wenyan could faintly guess that since this person was able to cause Chu Tianjiao to show some respect, as well as easily defeating the leader of the Heavenly Demon Alliance, Xue Lingfeng, this person should be the same as Luo Qianqiu from the Nine Mystical Palace. Mo Qingqing furrowed her brows, as though she was unhappy. Such an attitude made her feel extremely unhappy. If he has any matters, he can look for me. Qin Wendian replied, causing Yi Wuk to be stunned. After which, a cold smile akin to a sharp sword flashed in his eyes. Qin Wendian was truly courting death. After Yi Wuk returned to the Royal Academy, Xiao Lan asked, why didn't he come over? He said that if you have any matters, you can go over and look for him. Yi Wuk stared at Xiao Lan as he replied. Momentarily, a terrifying light flickered in Xiao Lan's eyes. Instantly, the indifference in his eyes disappeared, replaced by a sharp glint of sharpness. Inclining his head, he shifted his gaze onto Qin Wenyan once again. As their gazes met, Qin Wenyan could clearly feel the coldness and loftiness in Yi Wuk's eyes. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen in a place like Chu? Xiao Lan mused. If it wasn't for the unexpected news that the Azure Emperor might have left a secret in the Emperor's Star Academy, he wouldn't have traveled thousands of miles from the Nine Mystical Palace to such a small place like Chu. The matter regarding the Emperor's Star Academy has to be settled as soon as possible. I don't have that much time to waste. Xiao Lan spoke to Chu Tianjiao as he turned and walked away. He was arrogant, yet low profile. Outsiders had no idea that the tyrannical young man from the Royal Academy was actually an important character from the Nine Mystical Palace. Maybe this low profile was because of his arrogance, because he disdained to show off his might in a small place like Chu. Chapter 167. This time around, the 9 great academies of the royal capital had finally decided on the last round of examinations. Just like last year, the Dark Forest. Perhaps it was because they believed that danger and slaughter was something that a martial artist must experience in order to grow, so all of the major martial houses readily agreed. After all, the applicants for the martial house's entrance examination were all youths, and many of them had never even seen blood before. They simply couldn't be called true martial cultivators. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, the strong survived. Since you had already stepped onto the path of cultivation, you could forget about living a good life, unless you were willing to be an ordinary person. In the small town outside the Dark Forest, many adventurers would occasionally tease these youths upon seeing them. Life on the edge of a blade wasn't easy, and the appearance of these youths would always bring a ray of light to their lives, even if it was only for an instant. At the edge of the Dark Forest, the Emperor Star Academy's camp was led by Qin Wendian, Mo Qingqing, Luo Huan, Mountain and Luo Cheng. Other than them, there was also Rain accompanying Qin Wendian. Currently, Qin Wendian had already become the target of the Emperor Star Academy's protection. Precisely because he was too dazzling, there would definitely be many people who wanted to kill Qin Wendian. Although with the deterrent force of Gong Hong, there were very few who dared to openly act against Qin Wendian. However, it was better to guard against sneak attacks. The assassination attempt by Janice was a good example of this. Everyone, prepare to enter the Dark Forest. If you lose your life, you can forget about entering the Emperor Star Academy. Mountain turned his head and smiled at the examinees behind him. Don't worry, Senior Mountain. The youth in front grinned. He was none other than the genius, Zijun. His eyes flickered with excitement, as if he was itching to go. Okay, let's enter. Mountain waved his hands, and immediately, the examinees stepped into the Dark Forest with excitement and nervousness. Qin Wendian's eyes shone with a radiant smile as he looked at the sprinting silhouettes beside him. Did you remember your experience last year? Rain sat atop a white horse, looking at Qin Wendian beside her. Her gentle countenance gave off a warm feeling. Yeah, I was wronged by someone last year. Qin Wendian laughed. Who are you talking about? On the other side, Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes glared at Qin Wendian, looking extremely adorable. She knows very well that someone was very cold back then, Qin Wendian said. Didn't I already apologize to you? Mo Qingqing felt wronged as she glared at Qin Wendian. The two of you, stop flirting. Luo Huan giggled as she stepped forward. She was definitely someone who wished for the world to be in chaos. Sister Luo Huan, what nonsense are you talking about? Mo Qingqing felt a burning sensation on her face when she saw how ambiguous Luo Huan's words were. Nonsense? Junior brother Qin is such an outstanding person, and it just so happens that I like him as well. If you don't like him, then you can give him to me. Luo Huan cupped her hands in front of her chest. That seductive look of hers was sufficient to cause any man to be in a daze. Qin Wendian bitterly smiled as he stared at his senior sister Luo Huan. This senior sister of his really wanted his life. Mo Qingqing, upon seeing the expressions on Qin Wendian and Luo Huan's faces, snorted softly as she galloped forward, causing Rain and Luo Huan to burst out in laughter. Rain thought in her heart, sometimes, the relationship between humans and humans was extremely mysterious. The crazy words of outsiders could easily cause two people who already had a good impression of each other to slowly get closer. This last Luo Huan was extremely intelligent and was clearly trying to matchmake the two of them. Rain laughed when she saw Qin Wendian galloping forward. Such a beautiful couple was indeed very pleasing to the eyes. The few of them galloped forward. Mountain, upon seeing the youths heading towards the depths of the Dark Forest, involuntarily said, I'll go and protect Zijun. after which, he galloped into the depths of the dark forest. If it was in the past, he would definitely not do this. But with the example of Qin Wendian last year, in addition to the changes in the situation in the royal capital, Mountain couldn't be at ease. Seems like Senior Mountain really likes that little fellow, Zijuan. Qin Wendian turned his head as he stared at Rain and Luo Huan. He wants to become a teacher and guide his students. Luo Huan laughed lightly. That's right, when Senior Mountain first came here, he already said that he would stay in the Emperor Star Academy in the future. It seems that on Senior Mountain, there's a trace of Teacher Mustang's shadow. Qin Wendian murmured. Every time Mountain was by his side, he would always give off the feeling of a big brother. Although Mountain appeared simple and honest, there was no lack of calmness in him. This has something to do with his experiences. Mountain was a homeless orphan, and when he was 10 years old, he met Teacher Mustang. After discovering that he had a talent for cultivation, Teacher Mustang brought him into the path of cultivation, treating him as his own son and guiding him with all his heart. Hence, it's normal for Mountain to be like Teacher Mustang. The reason why he wanted to stay in the Emperor Star Academy wasn't only because of his talent, but also because of Teacher Mustang's influence. The teasing look in Luo Huan's eyes disappeared as she seriously spoke. Her eyes were filled with warmth. This group of people had all grown up together with Teacher Mustang. So that's how it is. Qin Wendian sighed as he stared at the silhouette of his Senior Mountain gradually disappearing into the distance. Traces of warmth could be seen in his eyes. Luo Cheng, Fatty, let's go together. Senior sister Su, junior brother Qin, and the rest will go together. Let's split up. Luo Huan spoke. After which, they split up into two groups. Although this was a test for the students, they still had to avoid certain dangers. Hence, it was still necessary for them to observe the situation. You guys chat, I'll go ahead and take a look. Rain spoke to Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing. After which, she took a step forward, leaving only Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing behind. This caused Qin Wendian to be speechless. How could he not understand the intentions of senior sister Su and the rest? They wanted to help him achieve his goal. In the quiet forest, Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing rode side by side. The atmosphere was extremely awkward. Mo Qingqing glanced at Qin Wendian as she asked, Dumbo, can you tell me about your past? What do you want to hear? Qin Wendian replied, other than coming to the royal capital, I've always stayed in the Qin residence in the Sky Harmony City. I didn't do anything else. Didn't you do that with autumn snow? Mo Qingqing murmured in a low voice. However, she soon realized that she shouldn't have asked this question. A mischievous expression appeared on her face as she replied, Don't mind me. It's all in the past. What's there to mind about? Qin Wendian shrugged his shoulders. You're right. Mo Qingqing smiled sweetly. In any case, you can always find someone better. There's no need to care about what happened in the past. Find someone better? Qin Wendian blinked his eyes as he stared at Mo Qingqing. If there was someone better, the number one beauty of Chu in front of him was far more outstanding than autumn snow in every aspect. Noticing that Qin Wendian was staring at her, Mo Qingqing's face reddened again. After which, she glared at Qin Wendian with hidden bitterness as she said, You bastard. As she spoke, she spurred her horse forward. There were even white cranes circling in the air. Wasn't I a Dumbo? How did I become a bastard? Qin Wendian scratched his head as he mumbled, smiling foolishly as he looked at the beautiful silhouette in front of him. In the blink of an eye, over 10 days had already passed since they entered the dark forest. The disciples of the various martial academies were struggling to survive in the dark forest, hunting demonic beasts. Only now did many of them realize how difficult the path of cultivation was. At this moment, Zijun arrived at a patch of forest. The long spear in his hands pierced into the head of a demonic bear, killing it with great difficulty. He then proceeded to cut open its head to extract its demonic core, placing it into a bag at the side. At this moment, his robes were tattered, and traces of blood could be seen on his face. However, his countenance was filled with a smile. He had already hunted many low-level demonic beasts. When he returned to the royal capital, He would be able to exchange them for yuan meteor stones as cultivation resources. This way, his cultivation speed would be even faster. Every time he thought of this, Zijun would smile happily. He was determined to be the same as Qin Wenyan. A year from now, he would strive to obtain glorious results in the June Lin banquet. With such a dream, he understood that he had to put in even more effort. Even if there were dangers, he wouldn't hesitate to do so. The expression on the face of the youth was filled with determination. Behind him, under an ancient tree, Mountain gazed at Zijun, his face filled with admiration. In the future, even if he wasn't as outstanding as junior brother Qin, the difference wouldn't be too great. Only to see Zijun carrying the bag containing the demonic core as he continued forward. At this instant, a sharp glint of light flashed in his eyes. Tossing the bag to the side, he brandished his long spear as whistling sounds filled the air. 3 terrifying arrows, akin to golden bolts of lightning, shot towards Zijun. Zijun retreated, his long spear continuously vibrating, transforming into a rain of spears. Dong 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 sounds rang out as the long spear collided with the arrows. Zijun was forced backwards from the impact, barely managing to block the arrows. However, at this instant, a terrifying long spear pierced through the air, magnifying infinitely in his eyes. Puchi, the long spear carried with it a terrifying force, carrying Zijun's body through the air. After which, it ruthlessly pierced into an ancient tree, nailing Zijun's body to the ground. The resolute smile on Zijun's face had completely disappeared. At this moment, a look of despair could be seen on his face as he lowered his head with great difficulty, staring at the long spear that had pierced through his heart. Why would there be such a powerful person who wanted to assassinate him? His eyes instantly lost their luster, yet they were still wide open. It was as though he had died with a grievance. He still had a dream he hadn't fulfilled, but everything had ended forever. New sounds came from the forest in the distance. Inside, pairs of sharp and terrifying eyes stared at the mountain. Their eyes were filled with a frightening coldness and killing intent. They were like cold, venomous snakes hunting their prey. How intense was Mountain's roar! The people in the vicinity frenziedly gathered in the direction he was in. Qin Wenyan was still together with Mo Qingqing and Rain. When he heard that roar, an intense sense of unease welled up in his heart. That roar seemed somewhat familiar. Bzz. Qin Wenyan leapt off his warhorse, and a pair of wings sprouted from his back as he madly sprinted, akin to a bolt of lightning. Mo Qingqing whistled, as the white crane that was hovering in the air flew down. Mo Qingqing mounted the white crane and flew in the same direction. Rain soared through the air, following closely behind Qin Wenyan. The unease grew stronger and stronger. Chapter 168. In the forest, there were many people gathered. Evidently, they were all attracted by the roar. However, they were all gathered there, as though they had seen something shocking. Qin Wenyan came to the periphery of the crowd, his heart pounding. It was as though there was unease and fear in his heart. He was afraid that he would see something he didn't want to see the most. His footsteps became incomparably heavy. Qin Wenyan took one step at a time, and finally entered the crowd. On top of an ancient tree, cracks could be seen on its thick trunk. A long spear had been pierced into the trunk, and because the force of the spear was too great, cracks had appeared on the ancient tree from the inside. And on top of the long spear, the silhouette of a youth was nailed there. Fresh blood dyed his robes red, and he had long since ceased to breathe. Yet, his eyes were still open, and within those eyes, there were traces of unwillingness and despair. He was still so young, filled with yearning for the future, and had already made up his mind to face the danger. But he didn't expect that this world would be so cruel. Life was mercilessly taken away, and the killer didn't even know who killed him. Boom! Qin Wenyan felt as though his heart was struck by a heavy blow. His countenance was as pale as a sheet of paper. That youth who died in despair, wasn't that Zijun? He was still so young, brimming with vitality, and most importantly, he didn't die in the hands of the demonic beasts in the dark forest. That long spear was a silent declaration of war. Mo Qingqing and Rain's countenances also paled. Their beautiful faces no longer had the slightest hint of a smile, and were replaced with coldness to the extreme. Qin Wendian continued walking forward. He didn't dare to shift his gaze away, but eventually he turned his head and stared at a patch of forest in front of him. Over there, fresh blood had dyed the entire forest red, and a silhouette lay quietly on top of it, as though there were no longer any signs of life. Mountain was secretly protecting Zijun. When he saw the long spear pierced into Zijun's body, Qin Wentian's heart started to ache. Indeed, he had finally seen what he was afraid to see. Rustling sounds rang out as a few silhouettes sped over. Luo Huan's alluring figure was as mesmerizing as ever, but on that charming face of hers, there was only a bone-chilling coldness and agony. She immediately rushed to Big Mountain's side and knelt there. She stretched out her trembling hands, as though she wanted to caress Big Mountain's face. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Silent tears. This was the first time Qin Wenyan had seen Luo Huan reveal such a pained expression when she was smiling, not to mention the unending tears. She always teased her friends with a smile, but no one knew the sincere feelings behind her teasing. Arg. Cheng, Fan Lu and the rest also rushed to Luo Huan's side as they knelt there, their hearts filled with pain. Qin Wentian's steps were as heavy as 1,000 jin. As he slowly walked to the side of Zijun stretching out his hands, he helped Zijun close his eyes. Then he pulled out the spear and carried Zijun to Big Mountain. He placed Zijun beside Big Mountain and knelt on the ground, looking at the two of them silently. Junior brother, when you have accomplishments in the future, remember to come to the Emperor's Star Academy to visit me. Don't forget that I'm here. Mountain's words still lingered in his ears. He was already at the 9th level of arterial circulation, and he would definitely be able to step into Yuanfu this year. When he did so, he would prepare to become an honorary elder of the Emperor's Star Academy. Hence, Mountain was very fond of Zijun. He wanted to nurture a disciple like Qin Wenyan, and nurture talents for the Emperor's Star Academy. His dream wasn't too far away, it was very ordinary. He only wanted to spend his life peacefully in the Emperor's Star Academy. But now, everything had already become nothing. He was dead. Just a few days ago, he was still alive and kicking. His senior brother, who was like a big brother to him, had now closed his eyes forever. On his corpse, there were still a few long spears. The assassin wasn't just a single person. Someone wanted to kill them, but they didn't know if it was to kill Zijun or to kill Mountain. Sister Luo Huan. Qin Wendian called out as Luo Huan stared at him. In the past, Qin Wenyan would always refer to her as senior sister, but this time, he was referring to her as Sister Luo Huan. Qin Wenyan stretched out his hands, wiping away the tears on Luo Huan's face. In Qin Wentian's eyes, there was a hint of a smile, but that smile was so demonic. This was the first time Luo Huan had seen such a smile in Qin Wentian's eyes. For the rest of her life, she would never be able to forget the smile on Qin Wentian's face. That was a smile that contained sorrow, pain, and determination. Qin Wentian's heart was probably feeling extremely unbearable right now. I know that no matter what we do, Senior Mountain will never come back to life. But the person who killed him will definitely pay a terrible price. Qin Wentian slowly spoke. Mountain wouldn't have any enemies in the Emperor's Star Academy. He came to the Dark Forest only to protect Zijun, and wouldn't have any conflicts with others. The person who killed him was equivalent to provoking the Emperor's Star Academy. The shadow of the royal clan was definitely behind this. If the truth was as he had imagined, he swore that the royal clan of Chu would definitely change hands. Definitely. As long as he, Qin Wenyan, was still alive. Luo Huan's eyes were bloodshot. She heavily nodded her head. The person who killed Mountain would definitely pay the price. We have to inform everyone in the Emperor's Star Academy to evacuate. This person might not be targeting Mountain alone, but the entire Emperor's Star Academy as well. Rain also felt extremely unbearable. But as the oldest senior in the Dark Forest, she had to be extremely calm. Other than the few of us, The majority of the other students are still in the examination phase. Even if someone wanted to target them, they would only target us. Luo Cheng was also extremely calm as he continued. However, there's no longer a need for this examination to continue. We should inform everyone to evacuate, but we still need to leave the dark forest. Rain nodded her head, knowing that Luo Cheng was speaking the truth. The enemy was hidden in the dark while they were in the light. This was the most dangerous thing to do. Not only that, the students participating in the examination were scattered all over the dark forest. If the few of them wanted to search for them, it would be impossible. Rain soared up into the air, standing in the air as she roared. Everyone who is participating in the examination of the Emperor Star Academy immediately evacuate from the dark forest. A powerful sound wave rippled out in all directions. Rain landed on the ground. She could only do this much. Luo Cheng was right, this was only an examination. Even if someone wanted to deal with the Emperor Star Academy, it was impossible for them to deal with the students who were participating in the examination. Let's go out. Rain spoke to Qin Wenyan and the rest. However, Qin Wenyan didn't reply. After a moment he spoke. Senior Mountain died not too long ago. The person who killed him wouldn't be too far away. I wish to go and take a look. No way. Rain decisively rejected. Qin Wenyan's consolation was extremely important. If this was really the work of the royal clan, then to a certain extent, it meant that the royal clan wanted to take action against the Emperor Star Academy. In the past, both parties could coexist peacefully. But once they shed all pretense of cordiality, there would definitely be a war. I only want to see if I can find any clues. Senior sister, I won't be impulsive. Qin Wenyan appeared extremely calm. Seeing the resolute look on his face, Rain added, you can only search in the vicinity, not too far away. I'll go with you. I'll go as well, let's ride on my white crane. Mo Qingqing stepped forward. Qin Wenyan glanced at Mo Qingqing before nodding his head. Okay, let's move out now. I'll bring the corpses of Mountain and Zijuan back. Luo Huan calmly spoke. Qin Wenyan and the other two mounted the white crane, following the footprints in the forest as they flew forward. The speed of the white crane was extremely fast, advancing forward. There are corpses of demonic beasts over here. Qin Wenyan spoke as he stared at the corpses below. Mo Qingqing communicated with the white crane to control the direction. There's a dense forest ahead. Rain gazed into the distance. Over there was an extremely dense forest, and it was extremely easy to ambush them. There's someone there. Qin Wenyan's gaze abruptly sharpened. He saw a group of silhouettes below, as though they were one with the forest, silently retreating into the depths of the forest. There's someone nearby as well. The white crane swooped down, as a few silhouettes appeared beside it. Upon seeing them, a terrifying cold light flickered in Qin Wenyan's eyes. Yi Wuk Wang Teng Wuchong. These three were none other than the three who challenged the Emperor Star Academy back then. Their silhouettes slowly soared up into the air, blocking the path of the white crane. What a coincidence! Get out of my way! Qin Wenyan roared. However, the three of them continued to stand there calmly. Rustling sounds rang out unceasingly, and Qin Wenyan saw several black-robed silhouettes disappearing into the dense forest. The white crane howled in rage as it advanced forward. Just as it was about to collide with the three of them, Rain faced Wang Teng on the left, Mo Qingqing faced Wu Chong, and Qin Wenyan faced Yi Wuk. A demonic aura gushed forth, as Qin Wenyan lifted his palms and blasted out. His arterial pathways thrummed as the falling mountain palms and forgotten imprints simultaneously blasted out from his left and right hands, as though wanting to destroy everything. Yi Wuk coldly laughed as he blasted out with both his palms, causing a terrifying sharpness to erupt forth. As the attacks of the two collided, Qin Wenyan only felt an unending stream of energy from his opponent. This was a cultivator at the Yuanfu realm, and the astral energy in his body was so vast that it caused him to be flung backwards as he groaned in agony. The white crane flew back, intercepting Qin Wenyan's body. Rain and Mo Qingqing also retreated, only to see that the black silhouettes had already disappeared into the dense forest. Blood seeped out from the corner of Qin Wentian's mouth. His eyes were cold, yet incomparably demonic. "Let's return." Rain spoke in a low voice. Emo Qingqing nodded her head. She knew that even if they continued to advance, they would still be in danger. Casting a glance at Qin Wentian, Emo Qingqing discovered that the current Qin Wentian had completely changed. He was now demonic and cold, with his black hair fluttering in the wind. "Yi Wuk, you will pay the price for your actions." Qin Wentian spat out. The white crane flew back as Qin Wentian's icy voice reverberated through the air. Yi Wuk furrowed his brows. The image of Qin Wentian's cold gaze still resounded in his mind. At that moment, Qin Wentian was too demonic. Chapter 169. The news of the Emperor's Star Academy withdrawing from the dark forest and Mountain's death quickly circulated around the royal capital, causing a huge commotion. Although there were many people in the Emperor's Star Academy who knew of Mountain, he wasn't that famous in the entire royal capital. The reason why he was able to attract so much attention was naturally because of the delicate relationship between the Emperor's Star Academy and the royal clan. For him to be killed in the dark forest at this time, it was extremely strange. All sorts of rumors and slanders circulated throughout the royal capital, with the ultimate target being the conflict between the Emperor's Star Academy and the royal clan. In the Chu country, the status of the Emperor's Star Academy had always been transcendent. With regards to this gigantic existence, the royal clan of Chu had always tolerated it, only supporting the Royal Academy and the godly General Martial Palace to weaken the power of the Emperor's Star Academy. Such a balance had persisted for too many years, but now that the Royal Academy had merged with the godly General Martial Palace, could it be that the royal clan was finally no longer willing to tolerate the existence of the Emperor's Star Academy? The people of Chu naturally didn't know why the royal clan would choose to act at such a difficult time. After all, the Chu country was currently engulfed in the flames of war. The rebel armies were attacking the royal capital step by step, advancing steadily, advancing towards the direction of the royal capital. This was a large-scale encirclement, starting from the borders of the Chu country. This was undoubtedly the most difficult time for the royal clan. It was said that the imperial family's army had already begun to retreat, preparing to give up half of the country to the rebel army. As the saying went, united they were strong, scattered they were weak. The imperial family could only give up some things in order to gather their strength. At this moment, in the royal palace of Chu, in a resplendent hall filled with gold and jade, several silhouettes could be seen on both sides of the hall. However, the person seated in the main seat wasn't Chu Tianjiao, but Xiao Lan. Xiao Lan reclined on the chair, her fingers tapping on the armrest as if there was a special rhythm. "How are your preparations?" Xiao Lan asked calmly. "There's no problem with the Chu clan, but when will the experts from the 9 mystical palace arrive?" Chu Tianjiao replied. "Probably in the next 2 days." Xiao Lan's gaze shifted onto Chu Tianjiao, as he asked, "How about the snow-cloud country?" "Almost there within 3 days," Xiao Lu replied. Xiao Lan lightly nodded his head, closing his eyes to meditate. After a moment of silence, he spoke again. "Xiao Luz, it's been hard on you this time around. If this matter is successful, I will report this to the 9 mystical palace. Maybe your faction will be able to return." "Thank you, elder brother." Xiao Lu had a smile on his face. Not many people knew that the royal clan of Snowcloud Country was actually a branch of the Xiao clan of the 9 mystical palace. "It's about time. During these few days, I will send people to secretly provoke the Emperor's Star Academy, forcing them to take the initiative to act." Chu Tianjiao laughed. As to why he chose this timing to act against the Emperor's Star Academy, it was naturally because this was an extremely rare opportunity. The 9 mystical palace, which had never interfered with the affairs of the countries under them, wanted to make a move against the Emperor's Star Academy. Chu Tianjiao didn't know the exact reason. Xiao Lan was a descendant of the Xiao clan, one of the 3 major powers of the 9 mystical palace. Since he was here, Chu Tianjiao naturally wouldn't ask. He knew that this wasn't something he should be asking. Although Xiao Lan's eyes were closed, there were many worries in his heart. It wouldn't be easy to take down the Emperor's Star Academy. Luo Tianya had once wanted to do this, but sadly he didn't succeed. Behind the Emperor's Star Academy, there were shadows of the Azure Emperor Palace. When Heavenly Dipper sovereigns acted, the shadows of the Azure Emperor Palace would appear. In the past, Xiao Lan had never paid attention to this. But now, he could faintly sense that this connection was related to the Azure Emperor, and the Emperor's Star Academy's secret. The Emperor's Star Academy had 3 wondrous grounds: the Heavenly Star Pavilion, the Astral River Hall, and the Dream Sky Forest. Could the secret be hidden in these 3 wondrous grounds, or somewhere else? Qin Wenyan could already step into the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion. He had thought of finding someone to interrogate Qin Wenyan, but when he thought of Gong Hong, he decided against it. This wasn't a suitable time to provoke a Heavenly Dipper sovereign. If they wanted to make a move against Qin Wenyan, it would be best for him not to be implicated. After all, he wasn't clear about the relationship between Gong Hong and Qin Wenyan. Although the Xiao clan didn't care about a mere Gong Hong, if a Heavenly Dipper sovereign went crazy, it would be extremely tragic for a junior like him. As for Taishan's death, they didn't care at all. Although they didn't care, the Emperor's Star Academy did. Today, the Emperor's Star Academy intentionally engraved a stone tablet for Taishan and Zijun. Although Zijun had yet to officially enter the Emperor's Star Academy, the introduction on the stone tablet stated that Zijun was also a genius student of the Emperor's Star Academy. This was a first for the Emperor's Star Academy. The Emperor's Star Monument bore witness to the history and glory of the Emperor's Star Academy. Never before had the death of a student been engraved here. But this time around, the Emperor's Star Academy made an exception. A cold wind blew past, exuding a sense of desolation. Many silhouettes stood in front of the Emperor's Star Monument, including the elders of the Emperor's Star Academy. All of them had solemn expressions on their faces as they stared ahead. Engraving the stone tablet was Ren Qianxing's idea. He wanted the Emperor's Star Academy to record this historical event. This wasn't a simple assassination, it was a declaration of war. Many years later, if the Emperor's Star Academy still existed, this period of history would be mentioned by the later generations. But if the Emperor's Star Academy disappeared, then all of this would no longer matter. Hence, when Ren Qianxing proposed the idea of engraving the stone tablet, the opinions of the elders of the Emperor's Star Academy were astonishingly unanimous. All of them had agreed. Behind these elders, there were many students of the Emperor's Star Academy. Initially, they were bewildered as to why the Emperor's Star Academy would engrave the stone tablet because of Taishan and a youth who had yet to officially enter the academy. But as the rumors spread, they understood. This was a historical event for the Emperor's Star Academy. Next, there was a very high possibility that something major would happen. The third prince of Chu Tianjiao, pays his respects. From afar, a booming voice resounded throughout the Emperor's Star Academy, causing the crowd to burst into a clamor. Very quickly, they saw the silhouettes of Chu Tianjiao and his group. The arrival of these people was something that the Emperor's Star Academy hadn't anticipated. The crowd automatically opened up a path for them, allowing Chu Tianjiao and his group to arrive before the Emperor's Star Monument. The elders of the Emperor's Star Academy slowly turned their gazes onto Chu Tianjiao and his group. Yi Wuk, Wu Chong, Wang Teng and the rest were all present. Upon seeing their arrival, a cold, killing intent gushed forth from Qin Wenyan. Beside him, a dainty hand lightly touched his palm. Feeling the warmth of her hand, Qin Wenyan froze. Turning his head, he saw Mo Qingqing smiling sweetly at him, and the killing intent radiating from him also retracted. Chu Tianjiao continued walking forward, facing the Emperor's Star Monument. In front of them, there was a silhouette quietly standing there, with his back facing them. That person was none other than Mustang. Chu Tianjiao and his group bowed to the Emperor's Star Monument. He, too, didn't expect that the Emperor's Star Academy would engrave a monument for Mountain and Zijuan. The actions of the Emperor's Star Academy caused him to feel an intense pressure. This was a silent declaration, a terrifying sense of cohesiveness. Chu Tianjiao turned his head and glanced at the faces of the Emperor's Star Academy as he sighed in his heart. Being able to stand tall in the Chu country for thousands of years without weakening, the Emperor Star Academy naturally had its own strengths. It was like a formless energy, and when this energy was condensed, it would cause people to feel a sense of suffocation. Elders, I have something to say, but I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to say it. Chu Tianjiao stared at the people in the surroundings as he spoke. No one spoke. The atmosphere here was so oppressive that it made it hard for him to breathe. Speak. An instant later, Ren Qianxing spat out. Currently, the Royal Academy of Chu has merged with the godly General Martial Palace. The royal clan wishes to form the strongest academy in the world, and we hope that the Emperor Star Academy will be willing to merge with us. Chu Tianjiao slowly continued, in that case, the strength of the newly formed academy would be extremely terrifying. Regardless of teachers or resources, they would all be extremely terrifying. As for the Emperor Star Academy, we will maintain the status quo. Upon hearing Chu Tianjiao's words, many people had cold smiles on their faces. Wanting to annex the Emperor Star Academy? Was this even possible? As long as the Emperor Star Academy agrees, after the merger, the royal clan will provide for the cultivation resources of all the teachers and students. Not only that, the royal clan will also distribute yuan meteor stones to the teachers and students every month. Chu Tianjiao continued. However, the only reply he received was a deathly silence. Scram! A cold voice rang out. The one who spoke was Mustang. His back was facing Chu Tianjiao and his group, and he didn't even bother to turn his head back. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control himself and attack. Chu Tianjiao froze, but the smile on his face didn't fade. He bowed to the elders of the Emperor Star Academy. This junior shall take his leave. After which, he led his group away. Wait a minute. Ren Qianxing spat out, causing Chu Tianjiao to halt his steps. From now onwards, the Emperor Star Academy will not allow any of you to enter. If any of you step within the boundaries of the Emperor Star Academy, we will kill you without mercy. As the sound of Ren Qianxing's voice faded, the entire atmosphere was filled with an intense killing intent. That ice-cold tone of his caused Chu Tianjiao's heart to tremble. However, very quickly, the corners of his mouth curled up in a cold smile as he lifted his foot and continued walking away. The Emperor Star Academy didn't directly deal with Chu Tianjiao. Firstly, they didn't have a good reason to do so. Secondly, if they directly dealt with Chu Tianjiao, the ones who would suffer would be the students of the Emperor Star Academy. Even if a war were to break out one day, the Emperor Star Academy would protect their bottom line until one side tore it apart. Francis arrived at the Emperor Star Academy. Knowing of his relationship with Qin Wenyan, the Emperor Star Academy allowed him to enter and leave the academy freely. This time around, he delivered all the resources that Qin Wenyan requested. The Divine Weapon Pavilion had already gathered all of them. After receiving the resources, Qin Wenyan immediately started his cultivation. Despite the flames of rage in his heart, he didn't forget that his current strength was far from being sufficient. The next few days were extremely peaceful, but many people could smell the aura of a storm. This kind of calmness was akin to the brewing of a terrifying storm. The Emperor Star Academy and the royal clan didn't make a move. They seemed to be waiting. These few days, there were more and more people arriving at the royal capital of Chu, riding on demonic beasts as they headed towards the royal palace. At the same time, there were also quite a number of students from the Emperor Star Academy who left. Most of them were from the Knights Association. Such a scene caused the students of the Emperor Star Academy to feel that a storm was about to arrive. Chapter 170. In the training grounds of the Emperor Star Academy where Qin Wenyan was located, demonic qi towered up to the heavens. This entire space was filled with a terrifying demonic aura. This demonic qi congregated into a mist, enveloping the entire training grounds. In the middle of the mist, Qin Wenyan sat cross-legged. At this moment, his entire body was incomparably demonic. Streaks of demonic light flickered unceasingly as sounds rang out from within his body. It was as though his body was undergoing an unceasing transformation. At this moment, The demonic qi in the entire training grounds frenziedly converged towards Qin Wenin. The demonic light radiating from him grew increasingly resplendent, akin to the radiance of the astral constellations. Crackling sounds rang out, and in a short instant, the mist dissipated, all of it was absorbed into his body. The demonic light radiating from him also gradually faded away. Dong dong dong. A powerful rhythmic sound emanated from his body, akin to the throbbing of his heart. Even though he was just casually sitting there, one could still feel the intense vitality contained within his body. His vitality was many times more vigorous compared to before. Qin Wentian's eyelashes fluttered. Abruptly, his eyes snapped open as a terrifying demonic light radiated from within. The sharpness of the light was so terrifying that it could suck away the souls of those who saw it. That clean and neat face of his was filled with an intense sense of demonic handsomeness. Who? Exhaling, Qin Wenin stretched his body, as the crackling sounds of his bones resounded out. Clenching his fists, a crisp crackling sound could be heard. This was the feeling of being filled with strength. Right now, his physique was comparable to that of a demonic beast. However, this was only the first level of the fiend transformation art. In the future, if he condensed a beast-type astral soul and advanced to the second level, his demonic physique would grow even stronger. Right now, Qin Wenin could feel that even if he only had pure strength, he was already extremely terrifying. There were many demonic beasts that weren't at the astral constellation realm. Their strength came from the tyrannical strength of their fleshly bodies. Relying on his current physique to unleash innate techniques, the might of his attacks would be many times stronger. With regards to the results of his cultivation, Qin Wenin was extremely satisfied. Standing up, Qin Wenin retracted his aura and walked out of the training grounds. Wentian. Qin Yao, who was in the courtyard, couldn't help but walk over upon seeing Qin Wentian's appearance. Her heart ached as she gently caressed Qin Wentian's face. Smiling, she said, "You have to take care of your body when you cultivate. Don't waste your days and nights." Qin Yao knew that Mountain's death was a huge blow to Qin Wenin. Back in the Emperor Star Academy, Qin Wenin didn't have many friends. Luo Huan, Mountain, and the others, Luo Huan, Mountain, and Qin Wenin had helped him in the Sky Harmony City. "Don't worry, sister. Stellar martial cultivators would only grow stronger and stronger." A gentle smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face, causing Qin Yao to lightly nod her head. "But you have to control the size well." "I know." Qin Wentian understood that Qin Yao was concerned about him. "What's the situation outside?" Qin Wentian suddenly asked. "The atmosphere is very tense. The Royal Academy has provoked them a few times, but there hasn't been any major conflict yet. I'm afraid it's only a matter of time." Qin Yao replied. Anyone with eyes could tell that the war between the royal clan and the Emperor Star Academy would erupt at any moment. Currently, those clans were all keeping a low profile, waiting to see what would happen. The storm this time around would be unprecedented. The Emperor Star Academy was a gigantic existence. If the royal clan wanted to swallow it up, it would be extremely difficult. Recently, demonic beasts had been rampaging in the skies above the royal capital. Those who had the authority to soar in the air were all at the Yuanfu realm. Many of them headed directly to the royal palace, but naturally, there were also quite a few who came to the Emperor Star Academy. Naturally, these were the students who were out tempering themselves, as well as those who had already graduated. Those who were loyal to the Emperor Star Academy were willing to return after hearing the news. "Qin Wentian nodded. "Sister, take good care of father." After speaking, Qin Wenin headed towards the direction of the Heavenly Star Pavilion. The 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion contained the Spirit Beast testing grounds, the 8th level contained the Fiend transformation art, and what did the Azure Emperor leave behind on the 9th level? This time around, Qin Wenin wanted to go take a look. Once again arriving at the Heavenly Star Pavilion, Qin Wenin walked past the dust-covered old man. He bowed and walked past him. "Do you wish to enter the final gate?" That old man suddenly asked. "Yes, senior." Qin Wenin nodded his head. If the old man was willing to guide him, it would naturally be for the best. Use your strongest strength and directly blast open the gate. If you are unable to do so before breaking through to Yuanfu, there's no need for you to come again after you step into Yuanfu. The old man calmly stated, his words causing Qin Wentian's gaze to freeze. Everything that the Azure Emperor left behind seemed to require one to be below Yuanfu. The Jun Lin banquet, the spirit beast testing grounds, as well as blasting open the final gate, all of these required one to be below Yuanfu. However, could it be that this final gate was even more difficult compared to the Jun Lin banquet and the spirit beast testing grounds? Not only that, the current him had already cultivated the fiend transformation art. At this moment, Qin Wenyan didn't notice that the eyes of the old man flickered with a brilliant light. In these thousands of years, Qin Wenyan was undoubtedly the person closest to completing the Azure Emperor's test. Now that he had obtained the fiend transformation art, he should have already started cultivating it. If he couldn't blast open the final gate before breaking through to Yuanfu, he didn't know how long he would have to wait. Let's hope that this little fellow would succeed. Qin Wenyan arrived at the final gate. Although it had been sealed for thousands of years, there wasn't a single speck of dust on it. Instead, it was glowing with a brilliant light. Qin Wentian's arterial circulation thrummed as a terrifying amount of divine energy frenziedly flowed towards his arms. With a ferocious stomp, it was as though the weight of a mountain was crushing downwards. Boom! An oppressive sound rang out, yet the gate still stood there unwaveringly. Evidently, Qin Wentian's attack had no way to shake it. A demonic aura gushed forth from Qin Wenyan. His demeanor abruptly changed. Stepping out once more, he blasted out another terrifying palm strike. However, the gate still didn't budge in the slightest. Who so strong? Qin Wentian's gaze froze, as the blood in his body thrummed. At this moment, his demeanor changed once more. The aura of a monarch descending from the heavens was mixed with a demonic aura, as though he was a paragon amongst demonic beasts. The divine energy within Qin Wentian's body surged. After a long period of time, he stepped out once more as he blasted out with both his palms, executing the forgotten imprint on his left hand and the falling mountain palms on his right. Boom! A thunderous sound rang out, causing the entire space to tremble. This caused those from the Heavenly Star Pavilion who were searching for innate techniques to be stunned as they inclined their heads and stared upwards. What was happening on the 7th level? It seemed that only Qin Wenyan had the authority to enter the 7th level. The heart of the old man trembled when he heard the terrifying sound. This meant that Qin Wenyan had a chance to break open the gate. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Even with such an attack, he still had no way to break open the gate. Dang, dang. At this moment, the sound of a bell reverberated throughout the Emperor Star Academy, causing Qin Wenyan to furrow his brows. Ever since he entered the academy, he had never heard such a sound before. Qin Wenyan hurriedly departed, only to see those from the Heavenly Star Pavilion exiting the Emperor Star Academy, all heading in the same direction. I've been in the Emperor Star Academy for 3 years, but this is the first time the bell has rung to summon all the elders and students. A voice sighed. Everyone knew that something major had happened. Upon hearing this voice, Qin Wentian's eyes abruptly opened, as a terrifying light flashed within them. What should have come, had finally come. Qin Wenyan followed the crowd and once again arrived in front of the Emperor's Star Monument. Over there were a few silhouettes with their backs facing the crowd. They inclined their heads and stared at the monument that recorded the history and glory of the Emperor's Star Academy. Naturally, there was also the monument of Mountain and Zijun. Not too long after, a vast number of people gathered in front of the Emperor's Star Monument. It was an extremely majestic sight. Damn it, those bastards from the Royal Academy are clearly trying to stir up trouble. If they want to fight, they want to fight. Do you think our Emperor Star Academy is afraid of them? Someone rushed over as he howled in rage. That's right, there's no need for evidence for the deaths of Senior Mountain and Zijun. The Royal Academy must have borrowed the strength of the Royal Academy to kill them. Very quickly, many voices rang out, as the crowd gradually understood what had happened. So it turned out that today in the royal capital, there were a few students from the Emperor's Star Academy who were having a meal. Among them, there was a beautiful female student who was harassed by the students from the Royal Academy. The students from the Emperor's Star Academy were naturally enraged, and hence, a conflict broke out between both parties. The other party had long been prepared and ruthlessly humiliated the students from the Emperor's Star Academy. Not only that, but one of the students from the Emperor's Star Academy managed to slip away and report the matter to the Emperor's Star Academy. But in hindsight, it was obvious that the other party had done this intentionally. This matter was quickly magnified, and many students from both parties joined in the fray, resulting in battles to the point where the disciplinary elder of the Royal Academy as well as the enforcers of the royal capital stepped out and crippled the cultivation bases of the students from the Emperor's Star Academy. But as for the students from the Royal Academy, they didn't do anything. Those with discerning eyes immediately understood that the Royal Academy was intentionally trying to ignite the flames of anger within the Emperor's Star Academy. In addition to the deaths of Tai Shan and Zijun, if the Emperor's Star Academy still wanted to endure this, they might as well disband. Because if they didn't take action, the Royal Academy would definitely provoke them again. One elder after another stood at the front. The person at the very front was Ren Qianxing. He turned around and faced the crowd. In an instant, the entire place fell silent. Everyone was waiting for Ren Qianxing to speak. Recently, some things have happened, and I'm sure everyone has heard of it. In the upcoming period of time, the Emperor's Star Academy might face a brutal war. Hence, if there are any students who are willing to leave the Emperor's Star Academy, I won't force you. In the future, when the storm has died down, you can come back again. Also, for those below the 5th level of arterial circulation, even if you don't want to leave, you are not allowed to leave the Emperor's Star Academy. In the Emperor's Star Academy, the number of students was the highest. Many of them didn't have a high cultivation base, and they wouldn't be of much help to the war that was about to erupt. Hence, the Emperor's Star Academy wouldn't force them to participate. And for those below the 5th level of arterial circulation, they weren't allowed to participate. If they participated, they would only be cannon fodder. The Emperor's Star Academy didn't need cannon fodder. These students were all outstanding youths, and it would be too much of a pity if they died just like that. Chapter 171. Lin Chong was the captain of the law enforcement squad. At this moment, he was leading a group of over 10 people in a leisurely stroll within the royal capital. Lin Chong's heart was filled with thoughts. He was well aware of the current situation in the imperial city. He was even forced to participate in it. The incident in the restaurant was planned by the higher-ups who ordered him to cooperate with the people from the royal school. In fact, Lin Chong was not very willing to participate in it, but he could not disobey the orders from the higher-ups. Hence, at this moment he was filled with worry. He was worried that the Emperor's Star Academy would take revenge on him. Tomorrow, he would report this to the Royal Academy and see if he could change his position. Busy. Abruptly, a sharp aura gushed forth, causing Lin Chong's eyes to narrow. After which, he saw numerous arrows descending from the heavens. These arrows shimmered with resplendent astral light, evidently formed from the condensation of astral energy. Lin Chong released his astral souls, as the aura of an 8th-level arterial circulation realm cultivator gushed forth. He blasted out a palm imprint towards the incoming arrows, but it was as though the arrows had eyes of their own. They actually bypassed his body and pierced towards the ordinary soldiers behind him. Piercing sounds rang out unceasingly as the arrows pierced through their throats. Lin Chong's heart instantly sank to the bottom of the valley. Who would have thought that revenge would come so quickly? An instant later, a sharp sword pierced through Lin Chong's throat. His body slumped to the ground as did the rest of the soldiers. Blood flowed from their throats, dyeing the ground red. From afar, there were people approaching, and upon discovering the state of death of these soldiers, their hearts pounded wildly. Was the storm finally about to engulf the royal capital? Ji Qing was a law enforcement elder of the Royal Academy. His cultivation base was at the 3rd level of Yuanfu, and his combat prowess was extremely tyrannical. At this moment, he was walking within the Royal Academy with a frown on his face. Currently, the atmosphere in the Royal Academy was extremely tense. Everyone knew that a war with the Emperor Star Academy would erupt at any moment. Not only that, the scale of the war would be unprecedented, because the Royal Academy wanted to eradicate the Emperor Star Academy. Elder Ji. Occasionally, there would be people bowing to Ji Qing. Ji Qing casually replied, but in his heart he was deep in thought. Elder Ji. Another person bowed to Ji Qing. But at this moment, Ji Qing suddenly felt an intense sense of danger. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. The person who had bowed to Ji Qing instantly closed in on him. The distance between the two of them was too close, and Ji Qing had not expected someone to attack him in the royal school. He could not react in time. Terrifying starlight circulated around Ji Qing's body. Starlight armor seemed to have appeared around him, and he could only focus on defense. Puchi! A sharp blade pierced through his armor as a terrifying black sword pierced through his heart. After that, the sword started to churn wildly as a destructive power erupted within his body, destroying his life force. Ji Qing saw a pair of cold eyes staring at him. The owner of those eyes was like a god of death, staring at him emotionlessly. Even if he was caught off guard, a third-level Yuanfu cultivator like Ji Qing wouldn't be assassinated so easily. There was only one reason why the assassin could do this. The strength of the assassin was far above his own. The spectators from afar cast their gazes over, only to see the figure slowly walking away. Only then did Ji Qing's body slowly collapse onto the ground. The hearts of the spectators pounded violently as their countenances became exaggerated. When they turned their gazes to that unremarkable silhouette, they discovered that the assassin had already disappeared from their line of sight. Someone tried to assassinate Elder Ji Qing. A roar rang out, igniting the already tense atmosphere in the Royal Academy. An instant later, several silhouettes appeared beside Ji Qing's corpse. Lock down the Royal Academy. Someone roared in rage. There's no need for that. Since the assassin could easily sneak in and kill Ji Qing in an instant, he would definitely be able to leave easily. A person spoke in a low voice, causing the crowd to turn silent. Ji Qing was none other than the disciplinary elder who had crippled a student of the Emperor Star Academy. Who was the one behind this, and who had the power to do so? The Emperor Star Academy didn't take the initiative to make a move, but rather used the most direct method to respond. If the Royal Academy liked to use such underhanded methods, the Emperor Star Academy was willing to play along. Blood for blood, a tooth for a tooth. As the news of Lin Shong and Ji Qing's deaths spread out, the tension in the Royal Academy was on the verge of exploding. Finally, one morning from the direction of the Royal Academy, several experts mounted demonic beasts as they departed. On the ground, there was also a vast crowd of people following behind them as they headed in the direction of the Emperor Star Academy. The Emperor Star Academy quickly received the news. With regards to the actions of the Royal Academy, they naturally had their eyes on it. Not long after the experts from the Royal Academy departed, the howls of demonic beasts could be heard from the Emperor Star Academy. At the same time, on the ground, there were also people who departed. At the same time, the Yi clan, O clan, as well as the other aristocratic clans, also departed. Such a storm quickly engulfed the entire royal capital. Currently, there were countless pairs of eyes staring at the Emperor Star Academy and the Royal Academy. Each and every action of theirs was the focus of attention. Today, the two academies no longer played any tricks in the shadows. Instead, they both sent out their strongest experts. Such news would definitely cause an earthquake, causing the entire royal capital to tremble. The Emperor Star Academy was about to clash head-on with the Royal Academy, and everyone knew that the Royal Academy was backed by the Royal Clan. In the Divine Weapon Pavilion, En Luyen stood on the roof of a building, gazing at the royal capital. Behind her, Yang Chen informed her of the movements of the Emperor Star Academy and the Royal Academy. This time around, the crisis the Emperor Star Academy is facing will be even more difficult compared to the previous one. En Luyen spoke in a low voice. Doesn't the Emperor Star Academy have a backer? Yang Chen asked. It should be the Azure Emperor Palace. From what I know, The influence of the Azure faction in the Azure Emperor Palace is getting weaker and weaker, and the Shao clan is one of the three main factions of the Nine Mystical Palace. Back then when Luo Tianya interfered with the Emperor Star Academy, he had no choice but to compromise with the Azure Emperor Palace. But this time around, since Shao Lan came to Chu, he must have already considered the possibility of the Azure Emperor Palace. And Lu Yen slowly spoke. Yang Chen didn't really understand what she meant. After all, the level of contact he had with the Azure Emperor Palace and the Nine Mystical Palace wasn't as deep as in Luyan. However, he could faintly sense that in Liu Yan's power wasn't small at all. Other than the Divine Weapon Pavilion, the Star River Association and the other major clans were all paying close attention to the situation. In the royal capital, on a vast piece of flat land, the students from the Royal Academy and the Emperor Star Academy halted their movements. They were only a few thousand meters apart from each other, and a terrifying battle intent radiated from them, pressing down on each other. In the airspace above both sides, demonic beasts circled in the air, while Yuanfu cultivators stood in the air. The total number of Yuanfu cultivators on both sides was over 100, and this was only the first time they clashed. From this, one could see how powerful the two powers were. Back when Qin Wenyin was still in the Sky Harmony City, it was already extremely rare to find a Yuanfu cultivator. On the ground, the disciples at the arterial circulation realm stood there solemnly, their gazes heavy as they lined up in rows. The Emperor Star Academy didn't force their students to participate in this storm, but as cultivators, they all had hot-blooded hearts. When the Emperor Star Academy was in danger, how could they stand by the side and be cowards? As long as one was at the third level of arterial circulation, with the exception of a few, the majority of them were willing to fight for the sake of the Emperor Star Academy. At this moment, the number of arterial circulation realm cultivators on both sides numbered in the hundreds, akin to a small-scale army. Both sides didn't speak. Just by standing there, the entire space was filled with a terrifying pressure, causing those spectating from afar to feel suffocated. The leader of the Emperor Star Academy was none other than Ren Qianxing. In the past, he rarely appeared in front of others, but now, everyone was already familiar with him. In the Emperor Star Academy, Ren Qianxing was one of the three vice-headmasters. The strength of the leaders of the Royal Academy couldn't be compared to Ren Qianxing, but their statuses were extremely illustrious. Shao Lan from the Nine Mystical Palace, Chu Tianjiao, the third Prince of Chu, and the Crown Prince of Snowcloud, Shao Lux. The three of them stood on the back of a powerful demonic beast, gazing downwards in the direction of the Emperor Star Academy. Beside them, there were a few elders from the Royal Academy. Those from the Royal Academy and the Emperor Star Academy were sizing each other up. Qin Wenyin was also in the camp of the Emperor Star Academy, and he was standing in the front of a small formation. In the formation that Qin Wenyin was in, there were Qin Wenyin, Luo Huan, Fan Lu, Luo Cheng, Yu Fei, and the others. They were all elites, and if a battle were to break out, they would be able to pierce straight into the hearts of their opponents. A large-scale battle was different from a chaotic battle. One had to pay particular attention to strategy. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a cold light as he stared at the formation in front of the Royal Academy. In one of the formations, there was actually Orkan and the members of the Knights Association. They were all nurtured by the Emperor Star Academy, but now, they were fighting for the Royal Academy against the Emperor Star Academy. I can give the Emperor Star Academy another chance. If you are willing to join the Royal Academy, I will preserve the Emperor Star Academy's assets and not touch you in the slightest. Chu Tianjiao gazed at Ren Qianxing and the rest as he calmly spoke. However, Ren Qianxing only coldly glanced at him and didn't even reply. Chu Tianjiao coldly laughed as he shifted his gaze onto the members of the Emperor Star Academy below. If you all leave now, I will definitely let bygones be bygones. Using your strength to fight against the strength of an entire country isn't a wise choice. As the sound of Chu Tianjiao's voice faded, warhorses galloped over from afar. There were a few groups of youths, and they were the members of the Yi clan, O clan, and the other major powers. They were all willing to represent the Royal Academy in this battle. In terms of numbers, the Royal Academy had the absolute advantage. No one moved, but the hearts of the members of the Emperor Star Academy were wavering. It wasn't that they wanted to flee, but rather, they were gradually losing the confidence to win this battle. After the merger of the Royal Academy and the godly General Martial Palace, they already had the advantage in terms of numbers. In addition to the participation of the members of the various major powers, the Royal Academy had the advantage in terms of numbers. At this moment, a silhouette stepped out, causing the members of the Emperor Star Academy to be stunned. Qin Wenyin took a few steps forward, as he stood in front of the members of the Emperor Star Academy. Inclining his head, he stared at the silhouette in the air. The Royal Academy was supported by the royal clan, yet they were suppressed by the Emperor Star Academy for 1,000 years. Now, in order to deal with the Emperor Star Academy, they even merged with the godly General Martial Palace, using all sorts of methods to deal with the Emperor Star Academy. I'm sure that the pressure they endured for 1,000 years must have been extremely painful. Qin Wenyin calmly continued, "No one can replace our position. We are from the Emperor Star Academy." As Qin Wenyin spoke, his long hair fluttered in the wind, as though he was basking in the glory of the Emperor Star Academy. At this moment, the students of the Emperor Star Academy all felt their blood boiling. In order to deal with them, the royal clan had spent so much effort. They were from the Emperor Star Academy. Chapter 172. Ever since the Emperor Star Academy's founding, they had enjoyed too much glory. But today, they were faced with a tough challenge. Qin Wenyin wielded the ancient halberd in his hands as he stood at the front. The blood in his body surged, and his demonic aura became incomparably demonic. Unknowingly, his stature grew taller and taller. That demonic aura was like that of a monarch descending from the heavens. His blazing battle intent caused the blood of the students of the Emperor Star Academy to boil. Today, they would fight for glory, for a mission. In the direction of the Royal Academy, there were also a few silhouettes walking out. Among them were Orkan, Ho Tai, Chuchen, Lingya, and many others. Their lineup was much more luxurious compared to that of the Emperor Star Academy. However, when the students of the Emperor Star Academy saw Qin Wenyin standing there, they felt as though their hearts were at ease. Not long ago, Qin Wenyan's group of 5 had won a complete victory over the Royal Academy. From both sides, the sounds of galloping horses could be heard. The youths of the Yi and O clans were all stirring, ready to fight at any moment. Luo Huan, Luo Cheng, Fan Lu and the rest stood behind Qin Wenyin. Very swiftly, the astral souls of the students of the Emperor Star Academy were all released. The light they emitted was so resplendent that it seemed as though it wanted to light up the entire sky. The Emperor Star Academy only accepted stellar martial cultivators, and all of them possessed astral souls. Boom! The horses galloped forward, and the students of the Royal Academy also began their assault. They were divided into different camps, and at the very back of the camp, countless arrows pierced through the air, shooting towards the direction of the Emperor Star Academy. The battle had finally erupted. Qin Wenyin stepped forward as he howled in rage. It was as though he wanted to vent all his anger on this halberd strike. Boundless amounts of terrifying energy were infused into it, and the ancient halberd transformed into a terrifying beam of light, piercing through space as a roaring sound rang out, resembling a demonic dragon. Orkan and the rest bore the brunt of the attack. Their countenances stiffened, and they abruptly evaded the attack. The ancient halberd brushed past their shoulders, and the fearsome astral wind blew against their faces, causing a burning sensation. Pucci! The ancient halberd directly pierced into the body of one of the students behind them, sending him flying through the air as he continued to madly slam towards the back. The students behind him roared in rage, yet the sounds of chi-chi rang out unceasingly, only stopping when the third person was pierced by the ancient halberd. Yet, the Royal Academy's camp had sunk into a temporary state of chaos. Qin Wenyin, what a terrifying power! Qin Wenyin stepped out in large strides, as a second ancient halberd appeared in his hands. This time around, it was a divine weapon, the Feng Tian halberd. The coldness of the astral light, as well as his demonic yet domineering silhouette, caused Orkan and the rest who were at the very front to feel an oppressive pressure gushing over. They were actually somewhat afraid of Qin Wenin. Fan Lu and the rest followed closely behind Qin Wenin. Their formation was the vanguard formation, the strongest group of people. Their role was to slaughter, ruthlessly slaughter, using their strongest aura to stun their opponents. On the left and right sides, there were two large phalanxes protecting Qin Wenin and the others from encirclement. Fan Li's bloodline limit was also unleashed, as a series of arrows shot out, transforming into streaks of golden lightning. A ferocious howl of rage rang out from the direction of the Royal Academy. Orkan and the rest were in a phalanx formation, and all of them had terrifying beast-type astral souls. When they let out their howls of rage, it was as though a myriad of beasts were galloping together, wanting to tear apart everything. Qin Wenin didn't bother with them. He took the lead, dashing towards Orkan and the rest. Qin Wentian's arrows protected his left and right, as the golden lightning bolts moved in tandem with his every step. As Fan Li's strength grew stronger, he could already control objects to a certain extent. Controlling the astral arrows was as easy as flipping his palms. This was his innate talent. The one facing Qin Wenin was Orkan. Beside him was Ho Tai, and behind him was Chu Chen. But even so, when Orkan saw Qin Wentian's aura, he actually lost all of his momentum. He had never imagined that Qin Wentian's aura would be this powerful, akin to an indestructible demon god. Bzz. Qin Wenin made his move, his entire person akin to a bolt of lightning. His first strike was the mountain splitter stance of the great dream halberd art. Infused with the power of his bloodline and the fiend transformation art, the might of this strike was beyond Orkan's imagination. Not only that, the ancient halberd in his hands could amplify the power of his attacks. But at this moment, Orkan could only face Qin Wenin head-on. The long spear in his hands exploded forth, resembling a blossoming lotus flower. Millions of spear lights shone resplendently like silver. However, the instant the lotus flower shattered, the beautiful fragments were blown away by the wind. The ancient halberd was indestructible, instantly piercing into Orkan's heart. This shocking scene caused the spectators to be dumbfounded. After which, Qin Wenin roared in rage as he spat out a terrifying sword light. The ancient halberd in his hands was lifted high into the air, as Orkan's body was stabbed into the ground. "Those who block me die." An enraged roar rang out, causing the entire space to turn silent. The movements of the Royal Academy's members froze as they stared in shock at Orkan's corpse. A single strike, dead. At this moment, it was as though time had stopped. In the air, the Yuanfu cultivators of the O clan paled as they witnessed this scene. How tyrannical was this slaughter? Under the Yuanfu realm, other than Qin Wenin, there was no one else with such tyrannical aura. An elder from the O clan emitted a terrifying killing intent as green veins popped out on his forehead. He wanted nothing more than to rush down and kill Qin Wenin, but he couldn't do so. This wasn't a battlefield where armies could slaughter each other as they pleased. The battle between the two academies had their own rules, and now that the Yuanfu cultivators didn't act, it was obvious that they had some reservations. Once a Yuanfu cultivator joined in the battle between arterial circulation realm cultivators, it would be a decisive battle, and the arterial circulation realm cultivators on the ground would only be cannon fodder. Chu Tianjiao obviously didn't want to directly engage in a decisive battle with the Emperor Star Academy. Although they had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, they didn't have much of an advantage when it came to cultivators of the upper echelons. Hence, he would rather slowly kill the students of the Emperor Star Academy. When the Emperor Star Academy no longer had any students, there would no longer be any value in their existence. But if they were to directly engage in a decisive battle, it would be akin to a frenzied massacre. If that happened, Chu Tianjiao wouldn't even dare to say that he would be absolutely safe. If those hidden old freaks of the Emperor Star Academy decided to surround and kill him, he would definitely suffer. Who would dare to say that he would definitely not die? Hence, unless it was absolutely necessary, Chu Tianjiao wouldn't be willing to engage in a decisive battle with the Emperor Star Academy. He knew that the Emperor Star Academy wouldn't take the initiative to initiate a decisive battle. If they did, rivers of blood would flow from the students of the Emperor Star Academy. They wouldn't even have the strength to resist against Yuanfu cultivators, and this was something that the Emperor Star Academy didn't want to see. Hence, both sides agreed to allow students below the Yuanfu realm to fight first. Nobody dared to touch the bottom line and break the balance. After Qin Wenyin killed Orkan and paused for a moment, the battle erupted once again. The students of the Emperor Star Academy released their aura as they frenziedly unleashed their attacks. At the same time, many people moved in the direction of Qin Wenyin. Their intentions were clear with a single glance. If Qin Wenyin died in such a chaotic battle, he could only blame himself for his incompetence. In the future, even if the Emperor Star Academy wanted to pursue the matter, who would he pursue? Those at the Yuanfu realm didn't even step out to kill him. However, when they saw Qin Wenyin killing a student with a single step, the hearts of those from the royal clan trembled. The current Qin Wenyin was much stronger compared to the time he participated in the Junlin banquet. No wonder Sikong Mingyue wasn't his opponent and was easily injured by him. Executing the Garuda movement technique, Qin Wentian's silhouette was as swift as the wind. His left hand blasted out a terrifying palm imprint, akin to a mountain peak, while his right hand wielded the ancient halberd. Every time he slashed out, someone would die. Qin Wenyin forcefully carved out a path of blood, and no one could obstruct him. Luo Chengdao, Yu Fei's sword, Luo Huan's control, and Fan Li's arrows all followed Qin Wentian's movements. They were akin to killing machines, taking lives one after another, disrupting the formation of many students. Roar! A terrifying roar thundered out as several palm imprints blasted towards Qin Wenyin, wanting to bury Qin Wenyin within. Chu Chen stood behind him, amplifying the attack power of those attacking Qin Wenyin. In such a battle, the amplification from his astral soul was much more useful compared to his personal combat prowess. The ancient halberd danced about, as though there was a gigantic Xuanwu protecting Qin Wenyin, howling madly. The attacks blasted over, yet none of them could break through his defense. Bzz! A resplendent beam of light flashed as the ancient halberd swept out, arcing through the air in an arc. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he soared through the air. Both his feet stomped on the ground as he blasted out two falling mountain palms, akin to two mountain peaks. His silhouette dashed towards Chu Chen, who was behind him. Chu Chen's countenance stiffened. He had seen through Qin Wentian's strength. If he wanted to kill someone, no one would be able to stop him. Chu Chen retreated, but it was as though Fan Li knew what Qin Wenyin was thinking. Numerous arrows whistled through the air as they shot towards Chu Chen, sealing off his path of retreat. Chu Chen's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold. However, he only saw Qin Wenyin whistling through the air as his demonic eyes erupted forth with a domineering aura. Qin Wenyin was the only one under the heavens. Chu Chen felt as though he was about to be sucked into that pair of eyes, not daring to resist. Pooh! When the ancient halberd pierced through his skull, Chu Chen didn't even know that he had been sucked into a dreamscape. That instant was sufficient to determine his fate. Orkan had died, and Chu Chen, who possessed the bloodline of the royal clan, had also died. These two were the top rankers of the Junlin banquet. Upon seeing this scene, the countenances of the spectators in the air turned ashen. The Royal Academy had the absolute advantage in terms of numbers, but in terms of aura, they were actually at a disadvantage. Qin Wentian's group was like a hot knife cutting through butter, with no one able to block them. This was an absolute suppression. This was because Qin Wenyin was simply too powerful at the arterial circulation realm. Those from the Emperor Star Academy were also staring at the battlefield. Their eyes flashed with sharpness as expressions of gratification could be seen on their faces. Initially, they were still worried that Qin Wenyin would be surrounded and annihilated, but now that they had witnessed Qin Wentian's tyrannical combat prowess, they could rest assured. As long as one didn't use Yuanfu, he was invincible. The current Qin Wenyin could be said to be the strongest cultivator in Chu below Yuanfu. Under Yuanfu, he was invincible. Chapter 173. On the battlefield, in the air, Orkhan's father had an expression of agony on his face. Orkhan's talent was extraordinary, and he was extremely outstanding in the O clan. But now, he had died in the hands of Qin Wenyin. He would never forget that Orphan had suffered the same fate. At this moment, his veins were bulging as his killing intent surged. "It's useless, Janice." Orkhan's father howled in rage in his heart. Janice was Orkhan's teacher and had a close relationship with him. He had secretly provided Janice with a large amount of cultivation resources, and as long as Janice could kill Qin Wenyin, he would allow him to escape to a faraway place, and at the same time, reward him handsomely. However, Janice had failed, resulting in Orkhan's death today. His heart was filled with hatred. If he had valued Qin Wenyin earlier, he would have long sent powerful Yuanfu cultivators to assassinate him. Now that Qin Wenyin was at the arterial circulation realm, if he wanted to kill him, only a Yuanfu cultivator would be able to do so. However, Chu Tianjiao didn't want to break the stalemate so quickly. The Royal Academy's momentum grew weaker and weaker. Although they had the advantage in numbers, it wasn't easy for them to kill their opponents in a short period of time. But Qin Wenyin and the others were different. Whenever he saw someone powerful in the Royal Academy's camp, he would kill that person. If this continued, the Royal Academy would be defeated sooner or later. Upon seeing this scene, Fu's father felt joy in his heart as he whispered, "Your Highness, if Qin Wenyin doesn't die, it would be extremely difficult for us to win." Chu Tianjiao glanced at his father, and naturally understood his thoughts. His eyes flickered as he commanded, "Retreat." As the sound of his voice faded, the Royal Academy's cultivators retreated as they fought. The Emperor Star Academy's morale soared as they chased after their opponents. However, they didn't overdo it. After all, there were still many Yuanfu cultivators on the battlefield. If they chased after their opponents, who knew what would happen? Both sides retreated back to their respective camps. In the middle of the battlefield, countless corpses could be seen, as fresh blood dyed the ground red. In this short period of time, 70 to 80 people had died on the battlefield. This was war. The eyes of many from the Emperor Star Academy and Royal Academy turned red. Among those who died were their friends. Not long ago, they were still playing around with them, but now, they had become ice-cold corpses. Only now did they realize how cruel the world of cultivation was. In the future, if they wanted to grow stronger, they would have to experience even more. Qin Wenyin stood in front of the crowd from the Emperor Star Academy. Inclining his head, he stared at the skies, his eyes filled with a demonic killing intent. The students of the Imperial City were all young people. It should have been a paradise for cultivation, but now, because of the struggle for power, it had become a cold-blooded battlefield. Chu Tianjiao and the rest also saw Qin Wenyin, as killing intent flashed in their eyes. Evidently, Qin Wenyin had already been included in the list of people who had to be killed. However, they were worried that the Emperor Star Academy would go crazy, and thus, they didn't dare to act rashly. "Retreat." Chu Tianjiao coldly commanded, as the students of the Royal Academy began to retreat. "Return to the Academy." Ren Qianxing shouted, as the students of the Emperor Star Academy also left. Although the Emperor Star Academy had won this battle, no one felt relaxed. Everyone felt as though they were carrying a huge mountain on their backs, and their hearts were heavy. This was only the beginning of the battle. In the Royal Academy, Xiao Lan, Chu Tianjiao and the rest were gathered together. Even the Yi clan, O clan, and the other clans were present. Xiao Lan's fingers drummed on the armrest of his chair, as his expression turned gloomy. He was extremely dissatisfied with the result of the first battle. "I don't wish to stay in Chu for too long. At most, I will take down the Emperor Star Academy within 3 months." Xiao Lan's indifferent voice was like a command. The secret of the Azure Emperor was hidden in the Emperor Star Academy, and the first thing he had to do was to make the Emperor Star Academy submit. If they didn't submit, he would destroy them. But even so, he didn't have much time to stay here. He had too many competitors in the 9 continents. If he stayed here for too long, it would be hard to guarantee that he wouldn't be left behind. If that happened, it would be extremely shameful. Young Master Xiao, at the arterial circulation realm, it would be extremely difficult for us to suppress our opponents. Fu's father stated, if we can't suppress the Emperor Star Academy, the only way to make them submit is through a Yuanfu battle. Xiao Lan's countenance was calm as he listened to his father's words. After which, he turned to Chu Tianjiao and asked, "What do you think?" Chu Tianjiao was silent for a moment before replying in a low voice, "I will send some arterial circulation realm cultivators from the army to mix in with the students of the Royal Academy and conduct another arterial circulation battle." "What if they still can't win?" Xiao Lan asked. "In that case, we can only proceed with a Yuanfu battle," Chu Tianjiao calmly stated. Yuanfu cultivators were the elites of Chu, and if he could avoid such a battle, he would definitely do so. Once the battle started, the deaths of Yuanfu cultivators would undoubtedly cause the strength of Chu to decline. Qin Wenyin. Fu's father intentionally reminded Chu Tianjiao, "If we use Yuanfu cultivators to kill Qin Wenyin, I'm afraid that the Emperor Star Academy would be angered. Not only that, if we were to infuriate the Emperor Star Academy, who would bear the consequences?" Chu Tianjiao murmured, his gaze fixed on Fu's father. He naturally understood his father's intentions. Chu Tianjiao naturally wanted Qin Wenyin to die, but he had to consider the possible consequences. "We don't have to kill him." Someone from the Yi clan spoke. This person was Yi Luyang. "Old Yi, what do you think?" Chu Tianjiao looked at Yi Luyang. "There are secrets on Qin Wentian's body, and we can capture him alive. If we fail, the Emperor Star Academy wouldn't go crazy. But if we succeed, we won't kill him, and the Emperor Star Academy would hold back in fear of harming the innocent. In the future, when the Emperor Star Academy fights back, we can release Qin Wenyin. However, this period of time is sufficient for us to do many things." Yi Luyang revealed a scheming expression, causing Chu Tianjiao's eyes to flash with a bright light as he laughed. "Old Ye's plan is indeed brilliant. However, how should we execute it?" Yi Luyang cast a glance at Chu Tianjiao. From the calm countenance of Chu Tianjiao, he couldn't see anything amiss. However, he understood that Chu Tianjiao had long since wanted to capture Qin Wenyin alive. Yet, Chu Tianjiao chose to wait for someone else to speak. The relationship between Qin Wenyin, the O clan, and the Yi clan was extremely poor. Let the O clan execute it, with the Yi clan as support. Yi Luyang spoke, as he and Chu Tianjiao turned their gazes onto Fu's father. Fu's father silently cursed at the shrewdness of these people, but he hardened his heart and agreed, "Fine. Since this is the case, you guys can discuss the details." Chu Tianjiao smiled. "Regardless of the outcome, I will not allow the O clan and Yi clan to fall into danger." Seeing the smile on Chu Tianjiao's face, Yi Luyang and Fu both expressed their gratitude. After returning to the academy, Qin Wenyin began his cultivation. Such a frenzied battle was extremely exhausting. He could only use Yuan meteor stones to replenish his Yuan energy, and at the same time, continue to condense his divine energy. When his energy recovered, Qin Wenyin could clearly feel that his arterial pathways were about to undergo a transformation. It was as though they had widened a little. It was extremely obvious that such a frenzied battle would greatly increase his strength. In Qin Wentian's heart, he was extremely anxious. Ultimately, his strength was still too weak. If he could condense his arterial pathways into a Yuanfu and condense the Yuan energy in his body into a liquid form, storing it within the Yuanfu pool, then this little bit of exhaustion would be nothing. At the Yuanfu realm, astral energy would condense into liquid droplets. Every single droplet contained a large amount of astral energy. At the same time, an ocean of Yuan energy would appear within his body, also known as the Yuanfu pool. The Yuan energy droplets would then be stored within the Yuanfu pool, as though it was inexhaustible. And as one's cultivation grew stronger, the Yuanfu pool would expand as well, storing even more Yuan energy droplets. When one's cultivation reached the peak of Yuanfu, the Yuanfu pool would transform into a true ocean of Yuan energy, and within it, astral souls would be born. As for the later stages, Qin Wenyin wasn't too clear. Maybe it would be the same as the memories he obtained from the tiny astral being. Outside the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect, there was a terrifying constellation. He didn't know if that was the realm after Heavenly Dipper. Sometimes, he would wonder, how strong was his old fogey's cultivation base? Most probably, even the current him wouldn't be able to reach that level. Thinking of this, Qin Wenyin would occasionally feel depressed in his heart. That old fogey's father was an extremely powerful character, yet he himself was constantly facing danger. However, this was merely a thought. To truly be strong, one had to take things one step at a time. He believed that he would be able to reach that level sooner or later. After his cultivation ended, Qin Wenyin went to the Divine Weapon Pavilion. He wasn't worried about his own safety, as Qin Wenyin knew that there were people in the Emperor's Star Academy protecting him from the shadows. And Lu Yen personally received him, and Qin Wenyin called for several weaponsmiths to assist him in forging weapons. He himself was inscribing divine imprints on his weapons, and started to forge divine weapons in batches. Today, some of the weaponsmiths in the Divine Weapon Pavilion were truly shocked. Before this, they had heard many rumors about Qin Wenyin, but today, they truly admired Qin Wenyin to the point of worship. In the entire Chu country, there weren't many people who could forge divine weapons in batches. However, Qin Wenyan's thoughts were different. To forge divine weapons in such a frenzied manner, the consumption of materials was also extremely shocking. However, Lu Yen didn't hold anything back and cooperated with him, disregarding the results. This caused Qin Wenyin to remember this favor in his heart. After returning to the Emperor's Star Academy, Qin Wenyin and the elders distributed the divine weapons, and at the same time, made sufficient preparations for the next round of battles. Finally, the Royal Academy and the Emperor's Star Academy walked out once again. And as though they had some sort of tacit understanding, they returned to the location where the previous battle took place. The experts of the two sides faced off against each other. This time around, the Royal Academy had more people than the Emperor's Star Academy. Their numbers were more than twice that of the Emperor's Star Academy. In the air, the silhouettes of the Royal Academy stood loftily, gazing down with disdain as killing intent permeated the air. Qin Wenyin stood on the ground, his acute senses telling him that there were many people staring at him. Inclining his head, he stared at the air in the distance, and saw several pairs of eyes flickering with killing intent. Xiao Lan also calmly glanced at Qin Wenyin. The look in his eyes was like he was looking down at an ant. As someone from the Xiao faction of the Nine Mystical Palace, he naturally wouldn't place Qin Wenyin in his eyes. This person actually rejected the opportunity he had given him. In that case, his ending was already destined. If it wasn't for the fact that there was a Heavenly Dipper sovereign protecting him, he would have long since ordered his subordinates to kill Qin Wenyin. In his eyes, although Qin Wenyin had talent, he didn't know how high the heavens were. He also didn't know what position he stood at. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.